Okay. We're going to call to order the Operations Subcommittee meeting at 5:56 p.m. And this evening, what we're talking about is the kind of like the future plans that we want to develop for the broadcasting, live streaming, whatever we want to call it, of our board meeting. So, as we all know, with pandemic, we entered a new world, and it's something we'll continue doing here. So, you have a couple of things in front of you. You have one sheet that's just sort of a consideration sheet, and the first thing is live broadcast, and just that whole realm of what you want to do there. And then recording and posting the meetings, and then also the equipment that we would need to do this. So those are some decisions the committee needs to think about and hopefully reach consensus on by the end of this. It'll take longer to come to that decision. So Sarah's also provided you with some data on the number of people watching these board meetings, when things are either live or after, and how often they watch it. So maybe Sarah, if you could start and kind of review the data, because I think that will kind of guide us in how we think about this.
Sure. This data goes back to last February when we created a dedicated CVS Board of Education YouTube channel. So we streamed a little bit before that, and there were some complications with YouTube. So we ended up creating a new channel. You can see since last February, really for the most part, viewership live has consistently gone down in the last month or so. We're seeing more between like a 30 or 50 person live watch rate. And I think what struck me, if you take a look at the column to the right of that, the average watch time, in an hour and a half to 2 hour meeting, most people are tuning in for around 20 minutes. So the community is not necessarily invested in the whole meeting, or maybe it's not a convenient time for them. But in general, they're not watching the entire live stream. The numbers go up when you look at the number of views of the recording. So the way we have it set up right now is really right after we finish the board meeting, it processes and the recording is posted probably within an hour or so of the end of the meeting. So you can see those numbers are relatively high, and they've gone down over time. As the situation has changed, the community doesn't feel as pressured to see what you're doing, for good or for bad. So one of the decisions we need to make is, do we want to continue to live stream, or are we okay with recording and posting afterwards? There are benefits and drawbacks of each. One just being, when you live stream something, there's a certain amount of technology involved. I know over the last year and a half with COVID, we had a couple of meetings interrupted when there was a disruption in Microsoft or a disruption in internet service. If we're recording and posting later, you're less dependent on that live technology.
Well, I guess I'll start. Looking at the number of views when we're in double digits and we have 15,000 students, I mean, we're not even looking at like 1% of people who are watching. Between that and the fact that they're only watching a 2 hour meeting for 20 minutes, I have a real hard time justifying paying for a live stream when it affects so few people.
Here's one more. Like, so do we have, how many people watch the recording?
So yes, that's last column to the right. Or the number.
Right, okay, I'm sorry, I apologize. All right.
That's okay. And then there's a note from the meeting on December 6th, that number 71 views of the recording was pulled on the 8th. That was only 2 days after. All this together.
So there might be more after that.
Correct. Correct. I did not update this today. Sorry.
I don't really have, I don't know, live streaming. I hate to see the, I'm not against live streaming personally, but I hate to see our technology department having to be engaged in it forever. But at the same time, I'm not sure, I think these numbers justify spending $50,000 on, we don't interaction with it, entertaining time. What do you think?
First of all, let me ask you something. There's two in here. Am I reading this right? June 28th. Is that like 32 hours? What happened there?
Oh, that's probably a typo on my part.
Okay.
I
Another
don't
one
know
down there.
if but I'm sure we would all remember a 32-hour meeting.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't a meeting. I thought, I wasn't sure it happened.
No, that
Another
must
one's
be-
like
that was
35 hours, so I'm
Yeah.
sure, okay.
I'm guessing it's 2 hours and 5 minutes. I can
Okay.
verify that.
And I figured there was a mistake there, yes.
Thank you. That's 2 minutes.
So, I mean, I guess, what is, I'm trying to pull out the information here, what is the difference in price between live streaming?
There's really not. So right now, the way I live stream, there's not an additional cost. I think whether we record or live stream, we probably want to invest in something at least a little better than what we're using right now. You know, what we've done is gotten us through. It wasn't something that had been on our long-term plans. It works. We can make it a little better than what it is. I think we can probably come to a compromise between what we have, $50,000. The difference in price won't necessarily be live stream or recorded though. So whether live streaming isn't necessarily an additional cost. Where live streaming would become an additional cost is if we purchased our own dedicated live streaming site. So right now we use YouTube, which is free. Well, that 50,000 was a huge package that included professional grade cameras, included extra monitors. It was a big package. The live stream itself, if we wanted to purchase our own dedicated service, it's around $5,000 a year. There is an annual cost and there would be a setup. So it's relatively nominal. If we choose, YouTube poses a few problems, and one of them is just it's out of our control. So, you know, we had a cable channel that was taken down by YouTube, and really we've never been able to entirely what policies we violated that did that. So that makes me a little nervous just that it's out of our control. I like to control district content. If we choose to record and not live stream, there are other ways I can post videos on the website without an extra cost or without depending on YouTube. Something that we control, and really we could just add a page to the Board of Education website and have a list of links that take them to the video.
I like that idea.
That takes out the live stream though.
Right, or it takes away the live stream.
Correct. That if we're going to live stream, we can purchase a service or depend on YouTube. We don't have the technology.
Purchase the service is what the 5,000 a year.
Correct. And that's again, just one estimate.
Can you still put the link on the website instead of
Sure.
depending on YouTube? Okay.
Let me ask you this now. With the one package, it wasn't really the live stream that I found attractive. There was, I think you had mentioned that package, we could bring it down a little bit. At the same time, that was the package that wouldn't obligate any of our staff to have to do this. It would almost like, I don't want to say run by itself, but it would be more free, which would free up our people, who wouldn't have to have people sign, things like that. Is that true, or was that still?
You'd still need a person to turn it on, basically, but it would be much less people heavy. It would require much less intervention and management by staff.
That's the one that's the most expensive package.
It's most expensive. I do believe we can pare it down. I've gone through it pretty well. I think, you know, but again, a lot of it just depends on what we decide. I do think, you know, live streaming for me isn't a big problem. It's a couple extra clicks in what we do right now.
Right.
If we take it out, it just solves some problems, like mainly in terms of YouTube or having to purchase that dedicated live stream service. We could still do a similar setup where we have it set up somewhere in back and it's run very easily from here, but it's just recording instead of live stream. I know there's so many options. There's so many technology options. I don't mean to muddy it, but I think really the first basic thing is do we stream or not, live stream or not?
I have a mixed emotions about, only, not the whole thing, but I think given the community, temperature that's not, the culture that's living in right now, I think they want to be connected more than they are. You know, I think they want to be connected and feel that we're being transparent.
But that's not what our data show. Data showing 65 people show up.
Well, that's true.
There's
I
15,000
mean, now,
students.
we're talking about now. It's just-
I'm even talking about even at like, so we had a peak at one point of 1402, but then after that, we only had max,
Yeah.
300.
Well,
But most of the time, we're in double digits, we're not even hitting 100. So that's, I mean, that's a lot to cater to a couple of loud people who armchair quarterback on social media
yeah,
during our meetings. And that's, I mean, that's, I guess, my concern. If you have an issue, you can come.
right.
You can come and address it to us, to our faces, as opposed to being on Facebook spouting off while you're sitting in your living room. I have a real hard time with that cost.
5,000
Yep,
more.
well, I mean, I have a problem with more. I have no problem taping the meetings and having them go on the website, within an hour. I think Sarah said they go on. They can go on. I have no problem with that. But I mean, when we're not even hitting 100 people for the most part, even when things were super contentious, we're at 37, 22, 29, 36.
Right.
Well, that was during the summer.
But that's when things were really contentious.
Yeah.
The 7th, we only had 83 people watching, and we had a protest out in the parking lot.
That's true.
So even now, October, 74, 41, 64, 34, 36, 65.
We have no idea. Are these, this is a stupid question. We don't identify these people are.
Yeah.
Not that I want to know, but I'm just saying that we're probably saying, so, they're interested. There's a group that's interested, a group, and I don't mean a group that is a specific group, I mean a group of our community. Or, slice of our
And when they watch, they're watching for not even 20% of the time.
community.
We have a 2-hour meeting and they're watching for 20 minutes,
So
a 2.5-hour meeting.
if we recorded and posted, what would we have to do for that?
So again, both systems use very similar equipment. We want to upgrade a little bit from what we have right now, but the cost can vary. One thing I do want to clarify, if we choose to right now when we live stream, the process of it from live stream to a recording being posted is automatically done by YouTube, and it happens within an hour. If we choose to only record, we'll have to then basically process that video and post it. So it won't be within an hour, it'll probably be the next day. Just a bit.
That's fine, and that would be on our website,
Correct.
and so we have control of that as well.
Correct.
See, my view is, again, the live streaming, it doesn't matter to me, I guess, okay? And the only reason I'm looking at the top package is because you had said it doesn't obligate our staff.
Right.
And if you go down one package even, then all of a sudden we have to have a staff member working it constantly, right?
Yeah.
Is there a way to take the top package and bring it down to where we have almost a middle package only with the part where the staff member doesn't have to be obligated to sit there?
So I did, I went through the original proposals that we asked for. I tried to, and again, I'm not an audio visual expert, but I think with the line items, I was able to do a pretty good job. So originally they proposed 4 cameras. I don't think we need 4 cameras for this room. I think 2 cameras, one to face the board, one to face the community here, and the speakers, the podium would be adequate. They proposed a very professional grade $6,000 camera. The cameras we're putting in classrooms, if we go one model up, it's a great quality, it has the input we need, and it's about $1,100. So I think if we go with a good camera, but not necessarily a Hollywood quality camera,
Is that something to sound as well?
They did include sound being integrated in this proposal. So I went through it and tried to take out things I thought we could take off. They included extra monitors that the board didn't seem interested in terms of board members being able to zoom in. That seems like that doesn't go with our policies right now. And I think we could do that where we have the night system that's housed in the back, work remotely from a tablet here for like 13 to 15,000. So that gets the sound integrated, it gets us 2 really nice cameras. That does not include the dedicated streaming site. We could set that up where it would simply record and then we would post. So it gets rid of some of the extras and puts it in, I think it's a pretty reasonable price range. It would still get us off YouTube, so we're controlling our content. Makes it a little less staff dependent. It's not inexpensive, but I think a lot more reasonable than where we started.
In order to do those, the residents would go to our website.
Yes, we probably just add a new page, like right now on the Board of Education page, there's a meeting minutes page, we maybe add one that was meeting recordings. And each week we could just add a new link so they can be able to access previous meetings as well as the most recent. I think it's a nice middle ground. I do think we want to get a couple vendors in to get multiple quotes to compare. Again, just give us ideas to see if there's anything we miss. But I do think the $13,000 to $15,000 would be reasonable for a nice system, a definite upgrade from what we have, not necessarily an over the top. More than a neat system.
I'd be open to that.
I'd be open to that as well.
I don't mind investing the money to better, to compare,
Right.
if they want to
Better
cover
quality.
versus talk about something like that. I think that's a good option.
So we would, the next thing we would take and put bids up.
So probably for that price range, you probably don't need to bid. I probably work with Constantino from Metro who knows lots of local AV companies. We can contact the company that gave us this first proposal, contact a couple others, start with 3 quotes. But we don't hit bid threshold until about, I think it's around $24,000. So I think we can probably start with 3 quotes and bring those back to the board to see if it meets their needs.
Does this adhere to our policy, like, some policies, if there's anything that has to change in our policies, this is okay? It's.
The policy is, there's not much there.
Oh.
So we can fit that, right that, fit what we want to do.
I'm okay with it.
I'd be okay with that.
Then we can pursue, I'll work with Metro to find some companies, give us some good quotes, and we can bring those back to the board with some more detail and a more definite price.
If possible, I mean, can we do it on where we keep it in the district side? A company that would be in our district or something like that, that would be my first choice.
Yeah, we can certainly try. I'm not familiar with all the companies. I have to rely on top for
Or
that.
Sherman Town, I don't know about the township or.
Okay. Yeah, like it's not necessary, just I like to keep it within
Local.
the family.
Yeah, we'll ask CIT for a bit or the township.
Right.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds good.
All right.
That's great.
So, Sarah, if you could just talk about the time it will take, like when will we meet again?
Well, with the holidays coming up, I don't imagine I'll probably get anything done before the break. I'm not sure if we can get people in that quickly, but we can make this a priority in January. They have companies in, because they'll want to look at what we have to make sure they give us an accurate quote, include everything we need, especially the sound system integration. So I would probably say by the time we have them in and then get quotes back maybe in early February
Yeah.
meeting, I think for them.
Yes, okay, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think that's a good step forward. In the meantime, we've made things work so we can make the meetings accessible to the public and we've been able to meet that need. We can just improve it a little bit.
Also want to say the first meeting that we were back here, I had mentioned the sound was bad, and I looked and the sound didn't get better, so I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
that sounds pretty good. It a lot depends on the masks and if you're close to your mic or not. I know when people lean away from their mic, it's definitely a muffle with what we have right now.
Okay,
Okay, we're good then?
Thanks,
tonight?
Sarah.
Okay, so Kim, we're gonna close this meeting at 6:17. And at 6:30, we'll commence with regular board meeting.
You want to tell us for?
Yep.
Good evening, I'd like to call to order the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education meeting for December 13th, 2021 at 6:31. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, again, welcome to our Board of Education. Thanks for coming by this evening. Next up will be additions and deletions. Can I have a motion to amend the agenda? So moved by Mr. Pro. Or by Mr. Quino. All those in favor?
Aye.
I say aye, opposed. Motion passes. Motion to amend the agenda to remove letter L, executive session, student expulsion hearing is not going to take place this evening. So we're going to need to amend the agenda to remove that from the agenda. So moved by Mr. Earl.
Support.
Supported by Ms. Steiner. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Now, executive session, page is now Al.
Yep.
Remember that, right?
That's correct.
Oh.
Then to L for executive session A is during client privilege, and that will adjourn it to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to C, Renovation presentations, Mr. Roberts.
Sure, this evening, we always try during this time of year to bring something to celebrate the holidays, and we're lucky today to have the Chippewa Valley High School choir here. And what we're going to do is we're going to celebrate with them outside. So they're on a bus out there, and we're gonna go out. And for anyone that would like to go, we're gonna walk on the sidewalk, not all the way to the parking lot, but the students will be between the administration building and the parking lot. And we'll be on that side of them facing this way. So sidewalks are out there, so we're good. Let's go outside.
Oh, no, you were good. I'm here. I'm gonna turn on this camera and it's gonna go right to my face. I need to stand.
Okay. Good. Okay. Tonight we have Chippewa Valley's Choraleers, and we are so excited to have you here. And isn't it great that this isn't Saturday afternoon? For those of you that don't know James Picard, he's here. Raise your hand, James. of our arts. And James is just an exemplary teacher in this area. So I'm going to turn it over to James. You got it.
Here we come a caroling among the leaves so green. Here we come a wandering so fair to be seen. Love and joy come to you, and to you glad Christmas too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year. We are not daily beggars that beg from door to door, but we are neighbors' children who you have seen before. Love and joy come to you, and to you glad Christmas too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year. Send you a happy, a joyful and happy new year. Jolly, 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 jolly. Dear old man, whisper what you'll bring to me. Tell me if you can. Johnny wants a pair of skates. Susie wants a sled. Ellie wants a picture book, yellow, blue, and red. Now I think I'll leave to you what to give the rest. Choose from me, dear Santa Claus. You will know the best. Jolly, 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 oh, Saint Nicholas. All with boughs of holly, la 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 la. We now are gay apparel, la 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 la. To be la 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 la. Treasure, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Holy, holy, holy is Christ, God your Virgin, Mother and Child. Holy infant, so tender and mild.
Okay, is this? So James works 24/7, and I mean it. Most of our people in the arts do. This Thursday, tickets are sold out, sorry people. But he will have this group plus others at Greenfield Village for their celebration that he do this. Personally, I'm glad the kids ended on that song. So I elementary principal. Elementary kids sing that song. When they get to that word peace, it's tough. You were beautiful. So once again, let's thank our choir. We have hot chocolate there. All right, we have hot chocolate there. Go that way. So we'll go this way. And then you go that way. Thank you very much.
Okay. Going good. Okay, Mr. Roberts. I don't know if you have anything else for this presentation. Yeah, we thank the choir, it's car, that was beautiful. That's all I asked. Also, so we also see that with community. Thursday said they're sold out.
Greenfield Village. Yeah, Greenfield Village.
Yes. All right, Mr. Roberts, is there anything else in their presentations?
No, nothing else this evening. Thank you.
Oh, the general consent agenda. Have a motion for the general consent agenda. By Ms. Minczak,
I'll support.
by Ms. Pyden. Anything on the general consent agenda that needs to be removed? Any questions, comments by the board? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye, please. And opposed?
Are any of the new hires here?
How much? Mr.
No, okay, okay, thanks.
Yeah, Ms. Pyden, we have a retirement season.
We do, we have one retirement. Mr. Campbell, please step up to the microphone.
That's all
Whereas Ronald Campbell has served the Chippewa Valley School District faithfully and diligently for a period of 24 years as a teacher. Whereas Ronald Campbell, through his leadership, has had a positive impact on the staff, students, and the community. Whereas Ronald Campbell, a conscientious, loyal, hardworking employee, has elected to retire. And whereas Ronald Campbell will be missed by all his school colleagues. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Chippewa Valley School District, not only on their behalf, but also that of the superintendent of schools and the administration, extend their thanks and appreciation for a job well done, as well as best wishes for the future. Be it further resolved that this resolution, having been adopted by the Board of Education of the Chippewa Valley School District on the 10th day of February 2020, be made a permanent part of the records of the school district and a copy sent to Ronald Campbell as an expression of our appreciation.
Okay, Ron. You know what, I was gonna come and speak from there. I'm gonna speak from here. I think it should be a little bit easier, okay? So I want to say a few words. First of all, this is nearly 2 years in the making of you coming to the Board of Education as you retired at the end of the 2020 school year. But every person deserves their day in the sun, and you're having yours here today. So we're excited about that. And we're actually very glad that it means something to you to come back for this as part of your career in Chippewa Valley. So I want to say a few things about Ron. I've done a little research, and I know that you were the high school teacher of the year in Chippewa Valley schools in the 2011-2012 school year. You have 24-year career in our school district, and you retired in June of the year in which the schools were locked down at the end of that school year. But I want to say a few things about it. I have his application here that a person wrote for him. And what I noted in this application is, I always think very good teachers know their subject matter really well. And the kids sense their love of their subject matter when those teachers teach. But truly great teachers not only portray that to their students, but they also know each and every student very well in their classroom. So you need to have both those components to be a really excellent school teacher. And that's what I found when I looked through your application. In the application, and I think this is a testimonial to you as a person, as a teacher, and the person talks about going to a funeral home for a former student that had passed away. And Ron went along with this person who wrote this, who was another teacher. And it goes on a lot. I'm just going to read this one excerpt. Ron walked into the parlor and the family greeted him like one of their own. He was flocked by students and parents alike, and it was very moving. And you think about that at the high school level, you know, to be honest with you, elementary kids love to flock around you. They just do that naturally. At the high school level, you have to have a little more magnetism. And I thought that really stood out to me. Also, your school improvement and the different the way you involved yourself in school. Your four walls were much greater than your classroom. It's obvious that the entire building meant something to you. And you really felt an important part of you being a professional was helping to improve everyone's workspace. He is constantly striving to better himself and his colleagues through a regimen and dedication to Chippewa Valley, making it into school early with his door open in order to talk with and help out struggling students. And this is from a student. Ron is a great teacher. He makes learning fun and easy because he's always so relaxed in his approach. Not only was he the teacher who gives an honest opinion, but he is someone you can always talk to. He is a teacher that is full of enthusiasm and dedication to the students. With every class, he gives inspiration in everything he teaches. Mr. Campbell changed my life because he changed my outlook on high school. Being a student of Mr. Campbell made it easier to feel comfortable around adults, and he made sure he could relate to us. I want to end with this. This stood out to me, Ron, from another student. I remember a day when we were taking a test while Mr. Campbell read the newspaper. He had actually cut out 2 holes in the paper so that he could watch us. He livened the mood every day I was in class. What a tribute, Ron. So thank you for 24 years of dedication to Chippewa Valley Schools, and we really thank you for coming back nearly 2 years from the time you retired to be here with us. So I have a little parting gift from the school district, but I'm gonna invite you to speak now.
I'll just keep it short because I know you guys, nobody likes a long meeting, but I was very detailed and I kept a lot of things. And when I subbed in the building for 5 years before I got hired by Mr. Canan, and I have saved absolutely everything. And when I was leaving school, at one point I had 40 boxes in my room.
Oh my.
Of stuff, and then I started thinking, where am I gonna put 40 boxes in my house? So all the boxes I dispersed and I only brought home a few things. In fact, much of that stuff is still in this room right now, of which Mr. Bogoff is in, who was a student of mine. And I was very glad that he got my room because he was quiet, but he was a former student of mine, so I'm glad he had the room, but a lot of my stuff is still in there. But I have, this is the paper, back in the, I call it the old days, because things were probably much different than they are now. The hall monitors, everything was done through the hall monitors, ringing. And I got this note from Mr. Canan on the 15th of January, 1996, and it said, Ron, please meet with us on Wednesday, the 17th at 11:30 for an interview with Mr. Canan. So that came by the hall monitor. And then I went through another interview for a receiver with Mrs. McKenzie. And I came over here for Mrs. Wangren.
Yeah.
Like, whew. And she was somebody you wouldn't want to be on her bad side. So I came for an interview and I thought it was just like a done deal that I had a job. Well, it wasn't a done deal. I got here and she started asking me question after question. And I was thinking to myself as an intern, I thought I had this job. And when I left, I didn't know if I had it or not. So I got back to school because I was subbing. I was in the building sub. And later on that day, the hall monitors brought me this Post-it note. And it says, Ron, Dave Canan said you will be starting tomorrow and to see him 3rd hour. Linda, which was Linda Cannon, so she must have sent this over. But I found out I had the job by the hall monitors. And I'm thinking to myself, I can't imagine that happening today. And the other thing, literally, I have thousands of cartoons that kids drew of me, and I didn't bring them. But this, when I was new, I used to take a picture of every class I taught. So even when because I did afternoon school, summer school, before I got contracted. I have a picture of every single class. And I used to get in the picture until this happened one day. I always used to be in the picture, and the one day that I was in this picture, all the kids were laughing. And what it was, this kid pulled his pants down.
Oh my God.
I didn't realize it, but his name was Ed Stepschulte. But honestly, being a teacher there, yeah, there were times that, I mean, I hated some of the things, but when I look back on it, it is literally, it was the greatest job I ever had. I only had 2 jobs my whole life. I worked at the county right out of high school, which, by the way, I started at Chippewa Valley in 1965 at Clinton Valley. I went kindergarten through 5th grade at Clinton Valley, 6, 7, 8 at Algonquin, and then 4 years at Chippewa. As I always said, I told the kids, I was living my own welcome back cottage. I loved my job, I loved my colleagues, and there's one person that I would never have been able to do my job if that person hadn't helped me, and that was Miss Conasec. Because I was very low tech, I was a real old fashioned teacher, hands-on, no computers, whatever. And every time a new mandate came down, the person that helped me was Miss Conasec. So I want to thank her for helping me, and I want to thank you for honoring me tonight. And literally, it was a great, great job. So thank you very much. And yes, I came back here several times saying, I want Mr. Roberts to hand me my belt.
So, and actually what we do now with those, way we tell people they got the job, is we write it on a sticky note here at central office, and now we send it to the person by pigeon. So we've come a long way.
That was brought to me by the homeowner.
Yeah. We don't believe in it high tech stuff, Karen. Pigeon does the job. Okay, Ron, for you in here, we have, the resolution, which was read by Ms. Pydon, framed resolution, and we also have your retirement bill. Thank you very much for 24 years. You're gonna be another picture too, so.
Well, thank goodness, you gave me a lesson on how to use the camera.
Then come on over here. We're gonna do one more. Is Diane here? Then do it. Diane, here, camera?
No.
Sarah can do it.
Yeah,
Sarah's
I can
got
do
it,
it.
right?
Or Rick.
I know, yeah.
You're in the center.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Especially now. Bye, Ron. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I mean, if you move down.
Mr. Campbell, before you go.
Yeah.
I just want to say thanks for everything you did.
Yeah,
Great teacher.
yeah.
Seems like it was only about a year ago we were at your teacher with year or more.
Yes,
Ceremony.
I had your daughter.
Yep.
I had Miss Aquino's son, who is now 40 years old.
Yeah,
That
he
really
will
made
be
me
in
feel-
February. Don't say he's 40 yet.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
And I have one more thing too. Ron, you've been an amazing teacher. I had you as a sub, and I'm so grateful for your friendship every day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck.
I love retirement.
Yeah, we'll go on to old business. There's none this evening. F new business. F1 approved change order summary report, Mr. Sutherland.
The recommend motions that the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education approve the 2018 bond issue change order summary report for the month of November 2021.
By Mr. Pearl. Support. By Mr. Sobol, rationale, please.
This order consists of changes to existing contracts for the purpose of owner requested work, deducts, code compliance, or hidden conditions on the construction and equipment projects. All amounts are within the contingency budget allocation. This report was reviewed with the Building and Site Subcommittee on Monday, December 6, 2021, and funding will come from the 2018 Building and Site Fund.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. F2, approve printer purchases and services. Mr. Sullivan.
The recommended motions that the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education approve American Office Solutions for the purchase of approximately 319 new printers for $231,535.36 and a 3-year cost per print managed service contract based on the actual pages printed with the approximate annual cost of $50,970 with the option of 3 annual contract extensions.
Motion, please.
Move.
By Ms. Cleo. Supported by Mr. Solo. Rationale, please.
Aggressive pricing was obtained through the public bidding process RFP 11.2122B. The proposals were reviewed by the purchasing and technology offices and approved by the technology subcommittee on December 6, 2021. Funding for the printer purchase will come from the 2018 Building and Site Fund, and the annual managed service contract will be funded through the general fund.
Questions, comments from board members? Dean Zephyr.
With all my kids having a computer, is this lower than school?
So the assumption is that we print the same number of pages as of now, but it's based upon cost per unit. So if obviously we print less, it will go down. Yes.
So, I mean, I have a question. This sounds like 319, that would just be like one per pad in the school.
So based upon the analysis that we did, there is a consolidation, meaning that we're reducing the number of printers. Right now, typically a teacher has a printer within their class. For management purposes, it's becoming very troublesome for us. So what we're doing is where there are pods, we're going to be taking the computers or the printers out of the classroom and installing a higher feature printer in the pods where appropriate. There are some buildings that don't have pods, so obviously we're going to have to do something different there. And there may be some buildings that are still going to have one per teacher because there's more than we do. But there will be less printers in the district, yes.
So is that going to prohibit printing during class because we're leaving kids unattended while we're going picking up printing?
So the printers have the capability to put in a code so that the printed pages will not come out until the code's printed. So they can grab the pages whenever they need to on preps or anything like that. So there would not.
They can't do it during class.
Correct, unless a student went out and got it. Correct.
Many of these are supposedly located very much, yes, the same questions made outside the classroom doors for the most part. So if you want to grab it with, like, you don't have to go down the hallway to a room, but it's an area. And also these printers are more heavy duty because they're sharing them amongst many teachers, so they're not your regular printers, they're more of a commercial grade, so to speak.
Are these like the Xerox size printers?
I don't know what, they are larger printers than what they have on in their classroom. Yes, they're higher speed, higher capacity, higher volume printers than what they have.
Yeah, we had quite a few questions, exactly what you asked.
Did I answer right, Sarah?
You absolutely did. One thing we did in planning this is we worked with the CVEA leadership and we walked multiple buildings together, identifying buildings where we knew it would be harder to do consolidated, identifying buildings with pods where it would be a little easier. We came up with what we thought was a reasonable plan for most of our buildings and then what will happen next. First of all, Brad McEldowney from AOS, who's the president of the company, is here tonight, along with Tom from Metro, will be helping us roll this out. Our first step will be to roll over the contract services because our current contract expires at the end of December. So we've already been talking about having a seamless integration. So toner for the current printers and service for the current printers continues and nobody notices a lack of service there. And then we'll be walking those buildings again to finalize the plan. And again, in places where we know it's a little challenging to consolidate, we'll be working with the union leadership to identify reasonable solutions. So we're never going to ask a teacher to walk 20 20 classrooms down to the other side of the building to pick up a print.
Okay, I guess I have another question as well. So every student has a computer, but not every student has a printer. So how is that going to work for students who need to print off work for whatever reason?
So right now, the student laptops are not set to print. If students would like to print, we provide a desktop and media centers that are connected to printers. But really with our new experience with remote and Schoology and online platforms, we really want to transition where students should be turning in work electronically. There will always be printing. We will never be completely paperless. But we would encourage teachers really to use those tools for like electronic submissions whenever possible. And then we provided banks and published office media centers and computer labs for when there is a necessity for students to print.
Okay, and that's true K through 12.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
So there's a considerable savings too, right? I'm going to this one printer.
Yeah, if you look at the bid tally sheet, we did bid 2 options. We asked for a 1-to-1 printer replacement as well as a consolidated with an average 5-to-1 replacement. 5 current printers being replaced with one of the newer higher capacity printers. When you look at those numbers, the original budget for classroom printer replacement is $400,000, and almost all of the 1-to-1 replacements are closer to $900,000. So they're more than double the budget. There were 2 bids that were closer to our original budget, but their annual operating costs were about $20,000 a year more. So while we could get it close to budget for the hardware replacement, we'd be looking at a $20,000 annual recurring cost in increased printing expenses based on their per page costs. So we were really trying to look at, this was a bid that involved fund as well as operational, and we wanted to balance to get the best value. Another thing that was really important to us was service. We haven't been 100% satisfied with some of the companies we've worked with previously. We're very happy with the references that we got from AOS. Comparable school districts who use them raved about their service and their response time. They've been very flexible, giving us options in places we said we have these challenges and willing to work with us. So, and on top of that, they were the low bid for the consolidated in terms of the management services and the hardware replacement. So we're pretty excited to start a relationship with AOS.
So questions, comments from the board?
And again, this is approximately the number of printers. So obviously, if we identify additional printers, then we will add those. So the cost then still will be well done, well under the budget.
I want to thank the president of ALS for spending some time with us this evening.
Thank you guys for the opportunity to serve the community and your school, so.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, with that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. F3, awards under 2022 renovations and site work contracts. Mr. Sutherland.
The recommended motion is that Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education award contracts totaling $8,749,439 to the following contractors for the summer 2022 renovation and site work projects at various buildings throughout.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Pearl,
Support.
supported by Ms. Biden. Rationale, please.
This work will consist of renovations and or site work at Cheyenne, Fox, Mohawk, Ojibwa, Iroquois, Seneca, Chippewa Valley High School, and Dakota High School campuses. Funding will come from the 2018 bond budget, surplus bond contingency bonds, and prior bid savings for the 2018 bond. These projects are scheduled to start in early 2022 and completed by the end of fall 2022. This information was reviewed with the Building Site Subcommittee on Monday, December 6, 2021.
Questions, comments on the board?
I unfortunately was at Building Site that evening, and I would ask, so our original budget, maybe it says it somewhere here. You expected them to come in at 10 million, is that what you expected? 10 million, 9, almost 11 million.
So the original budget was about $9.7 million, and it's not about 10.9. So we're about $1.2 million
Or we're over by $1 million, which we were kind of expecting because of the you know, how high the trades are right now. And materials, correct?
Correct.
Our contingency will cover that. Now, is this gonna come out of the second sale of bonds or?
As of right now, I believe we can get through this upcoming summer's project without having
70%.
so sometime probably next fall, winter time frame. We'll look at the overall budget, look at the cash balances and decide when to that next series. Yes.
I have a question about that amount then as well. So if we're at 10,905,796, where does the 8,749,439 that's in the motion come from? How do you reconcile those two?
So based upon if you've noticed, there are the roofing work. We received no bids for the roofing work. We also have received no bids for the student lockers at Mohawk or the band lockers at Dakota. And we did not receive bids for the electrical work. So we have set placeholders in the budget for those works. They're currently already out for rebid.
Okay.
And that's basically why the amounts are there. So my guess is hopefully sometime in January, I'm guessing, we'll be bringing back another motion to hopefully complete the rest of the work. Like actual bids.
Okay, thank you.
Those questions, comments?
Oh, I got one other thing. So, I noticed that in the notes, it says Cheyenne dome roof placed on hold. Why have we placed that repair on hold?
Because initially when we did the dome roof at Dakota, we had some significant problems with it. As of now, the Cheyenne dome roof, we haven't had any of those problems yet. So we're holding it just a little longer. We're not going to replace something that doesn't need to be fixed. So we're just going to hold those funds aside and see where it takes us. Hopefully it'll last us longer.
Okay, is there any sort of preventative maintenance that we can do so we don't get the problems that we had at Dakota with the dome roof?
So, Jeff,
No, it's the ultraviolet rays, the sun is what deteriorates it over time. So when it's not the sun, no, there's not much we can do to prevent it. But we are aware of what the problem is now, so as soon as we identify that, we'll start to take steps to look at the replacement of it. But hopefully we don't want to have the same situation. Hopefully it's just a defect with the original one at Dakota. We don't have the same product. Those were built 6-7 years apart, so hopefully it's different. It was just a manufacturer defect after the Dakota.
Okay, and no, I was just asking because I was just thinking of the issue that we had with the skylights.
Yeah.
And the lack of maintenance, which resulted in quite a hefty bill.
Okay.
So, okay.
Any other questions, comments by the board? No? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to F4. Approve surplus property sale. Mr. Sutherland.
the recommended motions of the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education accepts the offer to purchase surplus land located at Jean and Vesper Drives for $20,000 from Max Properties LLC with a contingency on the approval of the lot split and combination of other adjacent property and authorize the superintendent to execute any documents necessary for closing.
Motion. Moved by Ms. Kingsley.
Or
Support by Ms. Mill. Rationale, please.
Board Policy 7300 provides for periodic review of all district property and authorizes sale of any property not required for school purposes. On November 10th, 2021, the district solicited for offers on the potential sale of approximately 1/3 of an acre of land at the corner of Jean Drive and Vesper Drive in Macomb Township. Bids were open on December 10th, 2021. It is being recommended that the Board of Education accept the offer for the sale of the property.
Questions or comments by the board? So we have this gentleman approached the district. He had some dealings with the township and a small piece of property that he wanted to get that we were no longer using. So being transparent, the school board put it out for bid, so that everybody had an opportunity to look at this piece of land. And I guess really the piece of land by itself is no good unless the adjoining property is obtained. This gentleman claimed that he had clearance to get that adjoining piece, so it was only really going to be good for him. So yeah, so we put it out for bid and he won the bid. It was the only bid,
Yeah.
so it wasn't much, but we don't want it to appear like it was just over here. Our buddy's got wants this land, we're gonna give it to you. So we did give the public a chance and opportunity to bid on that. Sign. So, okay, with that, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. Okay, new business, we got to G. Community. Thank you. Right, community, what's the ceiling? So the rules is customary. As far as public participation at board meetings, each statement made by participants shall be limited to 5 minutes duration. Participants shall direct all comments to the board, not to staff or other participants. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. A person may address or question board members individually. Complaints against identifiable school personnel may not be expressed in an open meeting. Such complaints should first be submitted in writing to the board and aired in open or closed session according to the wish of persons involved. Presiding officer may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement if the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. Request any individual to leave the meeting when that person does not observe reasonable decorum. Request assistance of law enforcement officers to rule solely personal when that person's conduct interferes with the orderly progress of the meeting. Call for a recess or an adjournment to another time with lack of public decorum so interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting as to warrant such action. Waive these rules with approval of the board when necessary for protection, privacy, or the administration of the board's business. So, okay. One parent this evening to speak, and this is Jessica St. Laurent. St. Laurent, thank you for coming this evening, and please share your comments with the board.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for restoring SAC at Shawnee Elementary, truly. The new director is doing a great job. My boys wake up eager and excited to attend. Having a before school and after school on-site location for childcare has been instrumental in helping working families get back to a new sense of normalcy, so thank you. I also wanted to state again, publicly acknowledge the amazing job that the staff at Little Turtle does, as well as your staff, childcare aides, and directors, both at Ojibwa and Shawnee. These are some of your hardest working employees, and I hope that you realize what amazing gems that you have working for you. With competing daycares being built in Macomb, it is only natural that these staff members will more than likely be approached and potentially poached for hire. So please consider rewarding these employees with competitive wages that they deserve. Aside from parents, these early childcare directors, lead teachers, and caregivers spend the most significant amount of time with our children. These irreplaceable employees have the most important role in helping to lay the foundation for our children's development and set them up for their future success in elementary school, middle school, and eventually high school. It all starts at a young age. Many families' allegiance and loyalty lies with these specific individuals, and many families will follow wherever these individuals may decide to go. So again, please reward them generously as you have the funds to do so. Please reward them before they are recruited to work elsewhere. On a separate note regarding safety and the tragic events that recently occurred in Oxford, thank you for trying to keep our children safe at whatever cost. My daughter attends Seneca last week, and they were placed on an unanticipated lockdown. Nervous and shaken, she recalled the event to my husband and I after school. At the time of the lockdown, she was in the bathroom. She said that she started to run back to her classroom as fast as she could to get there before the door closed. My husband and I told her that next time that this happened, to get to the nearest classroom instead, that she could, even if it wasn't her own. Her perspective and situation was a unique one to us as educators, as we often know about lockdowns in advance. For that reason, I ask that the board please consider practicing drills both announced and unannounced so that the staff and students can best prepare themselves. I think it's important for students to know what the teacher perspective looks like and relay to students what to do in the event that they happen to be in the lunchroom, in between classes, in a bathroom, etc. Lastly, thank you for continuing to leave masking optional. We appreciate and applaud that Chippewa Valley is leaving this to be a personal choice left up to each individual family. Thank you for your time.
Your comments this evening. Moving on to H, Union Communications. Do any leadership would like to address the board? And administration reports, Mr. Roberts.
Sure, just a couple of things. To board members, in your board folders tonight, I put in some information. Just some data regarding COVID that I've kind of just given to you for the opportunity to look over. We remain pretty much where we have been in the last month. It looks like this, I think. It just looks like a PowerPoint. There we go. And we pretty much where we were. We had a spike in elementary last 2 weeks ago, and then it was better last week. Our high school and middle school remain fairly consistent over a period of time. Our quarantines remain minimal, considering the guidelines from the state and our health department, and then also our option for kids to be tested on a daily basis, and that's being used at Chippewa Valley High School. So there's lots of options, and in regards to that, there's no significant change in how things are going. The other thing that I would like to say to the board is with this, what's occurred over the last 2 weeks with Oxford and that, there's a lot of attention to our safety protocols related to that. And we really have an extensive plan in place. We have for a few years. We're required to do 3 drills a year. And we have those pretty much all mapped out at all schools, when they're done, how they're done. And so what the hope is that over time, kids have lessons each year, which carry over to the next year, but we still are required to do the three drills per year. At our meeting in January, and I'm telling you right now off the top of my head, I can't remember which meeting it is. If it's the first or the second meeting, Marina remembers. We're going to do a safety presentation and go over protocols. Do you remember the meeting? We talked about it last week in our meeting. So it's either I think it's the 6th or we come back on 3rd, 10th, it's either the 10th or the second meeting, and we will do a complete presentation and bring the board up to date on what all of our safety protocols are. What are all the guidelines that we must follow in order to, be compliant with the state? So, bring you up to speed. All right.
Okay, thank you. And to Jake, curriculum updates.
None this evening.
Thank you. Item G, other by the board.
Yeah, Frank. I guess we're gonna just inform everybody of what the meeting reporting decisions, I guess you say, were. We talked about it, and the 3 different systems that were, or 3 different plans, or whatever I call it, that were put forth at the last meeting. The one thing we did like the live streaming at one point, and we thought the money wasn't worth it back and forth. What we decided to do is we're putting bids out, or not putting bids out, sorry, but we're going to look into roughly a smaller program that will hopefully give us everything we're looking for as far as not live streaming, but putting it onto the website, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And recording with a few cameras. We're just taking everything we're not going to down to customize for what we're looking for. So we're working on that. We're working on getting the actual price, or at least a better price on the system that we're going to customize. And we hopefully will be able to record soon.
I just have one addendum to what Mr. Wojtovich described. And that was, Ms. Monia White had provided us with data as to how many people are actually watching the live stream. And our decisions were actually based on the number of people who are actually watching, because often that number does not even reach 100. And the length of time that people watch of a 2 to 3 hour meeting, people are watching about 20 minutes or less. And so we had talked about the expenditure of that to accommodate, around 50 people. It's quite expensive.
I think the Clinton Township board meetings are on at the same time, so they kind of draw a lot of it from our meetings. Okay, very good, thanks, Bob. Anybody else? Questions, comments? On the board?
No, go ahead.
I'm just want to bring it up again, as I brought up last week, I am still very concerned for our staff members. The last couple weeks, we've all been talking about how everybody can miss warning signs. And this is what I feel I can do, I don't want to miss a warning sign. So, if you really would like to see something work out with our staff. Some sense of relief. I know they're overwhelmed, but I don't want to be the one responsible for not responding to them because they're crying out for help. I don't know what I can do for that. This is all I feel like I can do. So I'm bringing it to the board's attention. Yeah, I feel like to ask that we see something.
I 100% agree with that. Problem.
Everybody disagrees. We saw the emails coming from employees in recent weeks, so Mr. Adams, I don't know what the district has planned, and is there counseling or some sort of thing we can reach out and identify these employees or reaching out to us?
For those that reach out in that way with specific needs, we are working on something to implement that they can access for support. So, and that's, both HR and business are working on that. So I'm not sure where that is or when that would be up and running for our staff.
Yeah, so Mr. Sutherland and I had a meeting today with provider that offer an employee assistance program to all employees in our district. The target rollout date, assuming everything goes along correct timeline, would be a January 1st rollout date. This would allow our staff to have access 24/7 to a counseling service. If there's an emergency, they can schedule counseling sessions. They can be virtual, they can be over the phone. For some people that might just need maybe some video tutorials or some of those as well. It's a robust program that not only is offered to each one of our employees, it's also offered to anyone in their household as well. The services would be 6 counseling sessions per incident. So if you're experiencing stress and anxiety as related to whatever the case is in your life, you would be able to tap into this resource. If a month down the road you're having, just struggling dealing with aging parents, you can get guidance and help. 6 other sessions as it relates to that matter as well. I don't know, Mr. Sutherland, is there anything I'm missing as it's related to this? You did. So again, it'll go out to our employees. It's to sign up for. It's very simple. The whole concept is that it's there for them. So as far as when you think of a typical benefit program, there's a whole enrollment process that's not the case with this. It's a simple username and password. We give it out and they can access that help. So that is something that from a systems perspective, we're starting to.
So I'm not trying to be way I think I say. Are they supposed to do this on their prep hour?
Yeah, they don't have.
This service could be offered to them, and some of them are receiving prep time, some of them are not receiving prep time. It just depends on when we need subs, but they can utilize the service after school hours. I don't have an answer to their 9 to 5 getting that help, but I can offer things outside of their day to receive help. And I understand that requires them to schedule something, do something else, but from an employee assistance program, that's typical, but it doesn't answer this question if you're looking for.
And I guess to piggyback off what Ms. Zek said, I know that many of the emails that have reached out to us in the last week were not only concerned about our staff, but we're also concerned about our students. So have we had any movement about increasing mental health support for our students?
But one of the programs that we are looking into would provide, again, some after-school support for our students. We're gonna work through those details. Mr. Sutherland and I were just reviewing kind of the financials on it to make sure that we can support that. We do believe we can support that financially. So again, that would be a program that we'd be looking to implement after we return from the holiday break. Again, it's an after-school type program is what we're looking at. Virtual, in-person, kind of same concept. You know, each one of our elementaries, it's the board's decision. Actually prior to right before COVID hit, to make sure that we had a dedicated social worker at each elementary. And those social workers will see all students in those buildings. And I understand that there are in some of our buildings 300-400 plus, if not more. But we do have that resource, which when I look at our neighboring districts, service that they provide at secondary level. You know, we have our counselors, we have our social workers, our psychologists, and again, the ratios are high, but we do feel like our staff can meet those needs. And then coupled with this other thing that we're looking to implement, I think that we will have programs for our students that might be struggling as they're going through the pandemic and issues as it's related to Oxford or any other trauma that they might be experiencing.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say I do agree with Joe and that both. You know, we've had staff reach out to us, and I don't want staff members to think that we are concerned about their mental health, because we are. But we also, and I think when other districts, a few other districts have given off some time, I think that just raised the focus on that. And I think that part of it is, you know, we have a very tight calendar and then we have so many snow days. So I just think that, I think our staff, even though they're stressed out, I think there's a portion of them that realize that for students, sometimes the best place they can be is in school. So it's not necessarily, do we need mental health days? Yeah, our staff is just, what's going on, it's just really so stressful, and I certainly care, and I wish we could easily just say, okay, we're gonna give them a day off. But there's things that we have to comply with in terms of contracts and in terms of snow days and the state required hours. So anyway, I do, but I understand, and I know that the staff has reached out to all of us. So I just wanted to say I do comply. I do agree with what you're concerned about, and I've even spoken to Mr. Roberts about it. I think at times stress level has gotten to all of us in a different way. We're not the ones on point every day, but we've all gotten way more communications from neighbors, friends, staff members that we know, and we care, and we don't have enough subs, and it's a really unprecedented situation that we're in right now. I also wanted to say that I think that our staff is amazing and has done an amazing job given the set of circumstances that they're dealing with. And I wanted to say that I really hope, I know that Ron sent out a district email recently about talking to your kids about stress and about their actions, because the actions of kids that are making threats is being taken so very seriously by the authorities and by school districts. And so with the stress the kids are under, we just don't want them to make mistakes that can be life-changing. So I'm just asking our community to continue to talk to your kids and make them aware that this isn't the time to joke about threats to a school. It's just not the time. Not that it ever is the time, but it's heightened right now, especially. And I'd like to end on a positive note. I would like to wish my fellow board members and our staff, the community, a very Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. I don't want to I cannot even express how much I appreciate the central office staff, the building administrators, all the teachers, everyone, and the parapros that work in our buildings. This last 2 years for all of us, parents and kids and community alike, has been horrendous in many ways. And then the Oxford shooting really unfortunately happened and made things even more difficult. So I just want everyone to have a peaceful and restful holiday season. Enjoy your families and your time together. Thank you. And I want to thank our staff for the amazing work they do every year, but especially over the last year or two. There's no good decisions, no matter what your decision is. It doesn't always happen. So thank you and Merry Christmas to all.
I just want to jump in. I know this is up by board, and that's not me, but I want to just I don't want to miss the opportunity to recognize our bus drivers.
Yeah.
Who last week took buses up to Oxford in Macomb County, showing support for the Oxford community. And our bus drivers did it for all the right reasons. I mean, they're very excited to go out there and support that community. So,
yeah.
And that's our bus drivers. They did stop a bus at Walmart, and they get very excited about helping the community. So,
yeah, if any community member wants to volunteer time to work in lunchrooms, any kind of food service, if they just don't know what else to do with themselves, they know that they're welcoming volunteers in those areas. So, anyway, thank you.
Okay. So, I also heard a lot from the staff. They're asking, consider whether they've been brought up about this 2-day off thing. Seems to be the buzzword now. Mental health days sounds good. I know there's a lot of other things that go with it. I also heard a lot from students that are still concerned about going into the schools, classrooms. They have a lot of concerns there. Let me ask you these programs that we're looking at, programs, wherever we're looking for the mental health. Are we aware of, or when somebody signs up for this or registers or whatever they do, are we making sure that it doesn't kind of stigmatize somebody? Because I know sometimes people are reluctant to sign up for these things because they don't want to get looked at a certain way. Is that something we have taken into consideration?
Absolutely, yeah. So for the employee assistance program, it's completely confidential. We will administratively know, who's attending or if they've attended. We'll give a utilization report of number of people that have attended. There will be no names given, no unique identification given. And again, the registration to register as an employee you're not giving all those information, not giving your employee ID number. So it's not shared with us. The program that we work through with the student, and again, it's confidential, as is anytime that you sign up to see counseling services, social work services within the school. There's a level of confidentiality that those practitioners have to follow.
Yeah, I just want people to feel free to sign up and not be worried or anything. Another thing is I saw some numbers and just a comment, I guess, the numbers don't seem to add up somewhere. So I don't know if this is definite yet or if this is the place to bring it up. Says something about was $1.75 times 1,600 and it was like 34,000. Am I wrong on that? That doesn't seem like it's 34,000. $1.75 per month. Okay, and then I see that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think Clinton Township government has had this program for a while. I strongly recommend it. And they need help we can get from the staff and work. I talked to Mr. Roberts today too about the problem. I did get a lot of calls from staff that would like to move up the day off next week instead of Wednesday. And I agree with them, but I don't know of any situation that allows us to call it a snow day when we're gambling that we're not going to have year. Some schools have a different calendar, and they get more time off now unless they don't have a week off. So from what I can see, it's very difficult to make it happen. I wish we could, and if anybody think of any way to do it, reduce the stress right now, staff is feeling. I have an easy answer.
So I'd like to address that, Mr. Crowe. Some of the calls for mental health have been to take days down. And some districts they've done different things. And I'd like to begin by saying every single school district is in a different position. They have different contracts which are negotiated. Our calendar is negotiated with our teachers association. They have different circumstances within their community. We are required by state law to have 180 student days. There are days that they call active God days, which typically are weather, storm related. Having days off for this don't fit that category. Now, maybe someone has taken those and they decided we're just going to do that and we'll, so to speak, roll the dice on that. Or they have extra days in their schedule. We have 180 days in our student schedule. We're supposed to have 180 days, and that's where we are. So that's a difficult situation to just say, okay, we're going to have this day and be off. Some have more than 180 in their schedules. They say we can use this day for that. We don't have that. What other districts have done, I have some knowledge of what they've done, but to go into how they figure they can do that and why that makes sense to them, that's their business, and they can do that. With us, one of the major concerns is as I talk to people about this topic, is creating a sense of normalcy for our students. And their routine, their opportunity to be with their friends, their opportunity to be with their teachers who they trust is very important for them in a sense of safety. So being there is good, it is important. We also have to weigh that on the idea that, and I received a phone call from someone who lived outside of our district who said, and this person was upset because their school district did close. And I'm not judging their school district. As I said, everyone has a little different circumstances. He said, thank you for being there. I have a 5th grader who's now sitting home alone while I'm at work, wondering if the reason he's not in school is because the school is actually unsafe. So you can see when you hear a point of view like that, is the wealth out there of points of view related to this. I do know what makes it hard is when we look at it, we can look at a level of our school district and say, well, that would be okay to do that. Those kids are 12th graders, they can manage. But as being a K-12 school district, we have people who rely on us to stick to a schedule because they work. And it's not to say that we're just babysitters. But that's part of built into their work routine. And so it's very difficult to just pick a day for so many reasons that I just mentioned and say that's what we're going to do. And I will say this, if we can get ourselves through to our schedule, because some people end this Friday and we don't, but going forward, our schedule will be of a benefit to our staff because we have things built in later that we don't have now. Every district looks at this differently when they negotiate these contracts. I can tell you that there are 21 school districts in Macomb County. 9 of them go through next Wednesday. We're one of those 9. 1 goes through Monday. 2 go through next Tuesday. So that's 12 of 21 that are into next week. And 8 are done Friday, and 1 actually is done Thursday. So you can see as across the county, we're all over on school calendars. And what some might be a little more front-loaded, ours is beneficial to our staff as we get through these holiday times. So believe me, it's one of my worst. The days I like less during the school year is a snow day. And that's because you impact so many people. And I think that, that's how we find ourselves in where we are right now. So we need to get through it.
There was one other thing I just thought of that pertains to employee assistance for stress. I don't want anybody to think we didn't have employee assistance before. I mean, we already had employee assistance in terms of if people are having problems with like alcoholism, drug, any kind of things like that. That already existed. This is just more a situation where you feel that you can't really cope at that point in time. You need someone to talk to, correct?
Yeah, not to be vague, but this is such a more robust program that what we've had. Our other one was more instant and situationally based.
Right.
We could provide them support and resources. This is so much more robust, broad-based, easy to access for not only our employees, but anyone who resides in the house.
All right, thank you.
That's.
Anybody else? Just want to follow up question on that. It seems to us that what we need to have is some form of screening. I know there is some forms there now to identify children and adults who are having trouble. I don't know if it's something our technology can look up. We can sign into your computer, you answer 4 questions, and we could have that screened. I know it might take a little bit more, it might take somebody else to have to review that or something, but that seems to be a proactive approach. That seems to be, we can identify individuals who are having trouble and follow up at least often, so they don't fall through the cracks, because many of these children may not have the support at home they have here at school, as Robert said. So it is a good thing to be in the classroom with their teachers and their peers. But if there's something we could do, I don't know how that works, Trevor. So how we screen, just boom, blanket screening. When you sign in your computer that day, you answer these 4 questions. And it's fine, your wife could have those answers put into a form, and we could follow up with those individuals and see if we can make a referral, further referral with them. If nothing else, at least identify that, we're listening to. I don't know, it seems to be what we need, because we've got a lot of people coming through the woodwork right now, contacting us about their mental health situations. And I'm sure there's a lot of students, too. So it seems like it'd be a very proactive thing to do. Maybe a little bit of a big task for us, but it seems that there's a time, this is the time we need to step up. I don't know if you can look at that. I can perhaps report. I don't know where it is. You can add that.
Privacy.
Yeah.
Just talking about you're identifying it to their own employer.
Yeah.
They like that. They like
Yeah, tell us, what kind of screen. I know we screen. I know teachers look at children and tell them they're not acting right, but when the teachers under duress themselves,
Yeah.
you have a classroom full of students. Sure. Okay. And with that, I want to wish my fellow board members, our staff, administration, our teachers, our community, everybody a safe and great holiday season with you and your families. Hope you have a great time. Enjoy it. So we're gonna go into a closed session here, and we're going to adjourn at 5. So with that, I will ask for a motion to go into closed session. Moved by Mr. Exec. Second by Ms. Pyden. Okay, your roll call vote, please, Ms. Pyden.
Myself, yes. Mrs. Pino? Yes. Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Burrows?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Wojciechowski? I vote, and we are going into executive session at 7:50. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so continuing on, open session 8:24, having a discussion about board members appearing at buildings unannounced. Chippewa Schools Board had policy that we run things through the superintendent first, so we're asking for information that we have contact that we put together for us, we'd ask that through the superintendent. We want to visit a building outside, a building our child attended, or not going for a football game, play, or choir concert, that's fine, but if you want to go on site outside those times, and your student doesn't go to school there, and you're going against a board member, which you are elected, we run through Mr. Roberts. So typically what board members do, we'll send an email to Mr. Roberts and they will copy me on. I'm aware from the board standpoint as president. And if there's any issues when Mr. Roberts is not following up, I can assist. If there's any issues where the request was inappropriate, we can assist. So that's customary how it's run with this Board of Education. We are having a problem with a board member. Besides, when he wants to go, he goes. He wants to ask questions, he asks questions. It's not within the realms of how the board is operating or the board wants to operate. So we're trying to correct this behavior, bring it back in line with what our board does. And it's a discussion we're having. So I had started this session, closed session, to protect these individuals from any embarrassment or anything like that. It was a discussion within our board family, so to speak here. But that individuals asked that we go into open session and discuss this. So we are not going on this session. And I'd ask him, how can we correct this behavior?
Well, as I already said, I request that we wait until another open meeting before everybody leaves. I didn't like the fact that we went into closed session behind closed doors and I was attacked. So I would request us go into another meeting, wait until another meeting when we have other people around instead of just us and hopefully the cameras.
Okay.
Our meeting is currently being live streamed now, so.
So you want to see it.
Sorry.
That's fine by me, if you wanna go that route, I don't know why you wanna air your, our dirty laundry out, in the public, but, if that's the case, that's what you want, since you are the subject of this conversation, I would be willing to make a meeting, but I would also like to have the key pass revoked and letters sent to administrators of our buildings that unless Mr. Wojtovich shows up via through Mr. Roberts making arrangements or showing up as a parent to his child's school or to a public ceremony or function like a play or choir concert, outside those parameters, he is unwelcome in our, on our campuses, in our schools. And we'll discuss this again next meeting. I'd like to have board members indicate.
Well, before you go there, I want to just say that you should make sure that everything you're claiming to do is legal. And there's been a lot of false accusations, false comments made here. This is one of the reasons I didn't want to do this behind closed doors, because I was obviously outnumbered and personally attacked with a lot of false information, things that just aren't true. So if you're gonna take action, make sure you're doing it legally.
That's why I got my
I
counsel.
did nothing wrong, and all I'm asking is that you do things legally.
Mr. Bednar, I'd like to make a comment.
Mr. Roberts.
Maybe this just comes down to a policy issue. We have protocols for behavior which are ones we've always adhered to. But maybe the policies need to be more explicit. And I know that one thing that John has worked on is policies that the board might want to consider. And I think that might be an important part of it.
Okay, I mean, and Mr. Cobb, are we doing anything illegal here? Like, can you address that, please? This is saying we're doing this improper. This is not the first time we met Mr. Wojtovich. Mr. Roberts met him several times to ask him practice behavior. His board has met with him
Right there is
also. And he's met with you last week.
Yeah, he did. But you're saying several times.
Yeah, and another time when we met with you. We met with you before. There's at least 3 or 4 instances where people have asked you to correct
That's not
behavior.
true.
Well,
That's not true.
so, okay, whatever.
See, that's what I'm saying. It's all just false.
You just can't, you won't even give us a statement. I'm gonna say it's not true, it's illegal. It's not true, it's illegal.
Well, you're making false claims. You're falsely accusing me of things.
I'm trying to get this behavior straight
Your
out.
actions are right.
My actions are absolutely appropriate. I want to be here right now talking to you about this, but we have to for our community. Our district is begging the board to take action against you. You don't understand.
I am here doing a job that I was voted in to do. I did nothing wrong. You're making it a bad thing. You're attacking me unjustly. And with false information, false accusations, I'm not gonna put up with that.
So I just want to ask a question. So I would like to policy changes that would be the best way to do it. But I just wanted to ask you, so are you going to fit buildings pretty much phone call 20 minutes or half an hour before you show up?
Have you ever gone into a building just on a whim?
No.
Well, then I would say you're not doing your job. I have done it, but 4 times. 4 times. 3, I take it back, 5 times. 4 of those were last week when we had the threats. And it wasn't typically unannounced. I walked in, I asked to talk to the liaison officer, and that was it.
So I just wanted to.
I take it back, with one exception, I did ask to talk to Paul, which I never did talk to him. Paul Sidley, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'm curious, so were you trying to find out about who prepared the liaison officer, or why did you feel there was a need to talk?
Why wouldn't I? We just had threats, lockdowns, everything else. I just wanted to make sure it was safe. I wasn't getting any other information except for just a quick email saying there was an incident. So I needed to get information. I didn't want to bother anybody. I thought I'd just go and talk to the liaison officer, and that was it. So this claims that everybody's trying to make it sound like I'm going in buildings all times of the day, that's just false. That's wrong. Well, you're saying that I keep on going and everything else. That's just a
I'm
lie.
not saying, I was asking some clarification questions. wasn't attacking you, and I don't feel that I'm trying, I'd rather, as a board member, I want you to be able to get the information you want, but, yeah, I do know that how building, how it appears to them, like Beth said, is that they don't see us, like, I think I told you once that you were a board member, I felt like in some ways being on is no longer just, I wasn't right, but I always have to separate. I'm here today as my child's mom, I'm not here today as a board member, so I didn't want to. But I never went in and asked questions of our staff because I trusted that our administration was doing their job. So I just saying we don't trust that our administration is doing the job in terms of safety for our kids and working with the liaison officers properly. This isn't an attack.
I must tell you that I have been denied information constantly. I have been not given information constantly, delayed information constantly, to the point where I just thought I would go and get it. And I didn't think I wanted to bother anybody, so there was no problem. On top of that, I mean, it was a situation where everybody should have been busy. So I don't want to call it. If I would, I tried to contact a lot of people and it just, I don't know. It's,
I just trying to contact people in the school.
through the past year, yeah, I've been trying to contact certain people they claim, ask me and I'll get you information. And I don't get the information. How about just tonight? And this is not the first time this is done. The board has now blindsided me twice with these sessions. Okay? Another administrator that is supposed to be getting the information has blindsided me many times with meetings. Basically, just the other day with a meeting, refused to tell me why, just sat down and then all of a sudden started claiming this and that.
Well, do you think that,
Why do you think that I am not entitled to go and check on a building when we have a lockdown?
That's what I'm not
You're saying I'm not allowed to go talk to the liaison officer. Can I ask?
Not while we're in lockdown. It is an unsafe situation. There is a reason why people are not allowed in or out of school. It is a lockdown. That's why.
So there's teachers and staff and stuff aren't allowed to go into the building.
they don't let people come and go.
Correct. The campus is closed. It's
Well,
locked
then something was wrong there because people were coming and going while I was there. So maybe we weren't quite in a lockdown. Or somebody else was doing things wrong. Because if nobody was allowed in or out, I wouldn't have went into the building.
Were you going to help law enforcement at this point?
No, I was looking to get some information on what was going on.
The thing that troubles me a little bit, more than anything, is that you get this information, let's just say you talk to people. None of the rest of us know what information you got. You talk to
Well, it sounds like you guys already had the information.
No.
It sounds like I might have been the only one without this information.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, typically as a board, we all should be receiving the same information in order to make decisions in order to do our job.
I agree.
All right, so if you go and talk to people individually, I have no idea what you're talking about, or what information you gathered that you have not shared with the rest of us. I don't know. I think I would like to, if you gather this kind of information that you think is valuable, I think the rest of us should know about it. And we're never gonna know about it if you don't follow a certain process to get that.
I agree. Now, don't you think it would have been very simple just to send out a text? This is something serious that happened last week. Just send out a text saying, hey, we have lockdowns at the school. There was threats. Instead of just sending out some kind of email and hopefully everybody saw it, especially when there's a known thing that I have a little problem getting emails and I don't check them every hour. Okay?
Just, I'm not saying.
Maybe I should write.
We're just gonna say you could have it come on your phone. So
Yeah, well, I can't do that legally. I have other information that I can't put stuff on my phone. It could cause problems. I never have.
Oh, okay, all right.
But you can get texts about it.
I get texts, because texts are downloading emails.
Robert, can I give just my perspective? And I don't mean criticize you. I just want to try to give this just a quick brief how I felt when I became a board member years ago. when I was young, I started in the city of Fraser, and I questioned the same thing, what was going on about the fire department or the police department? And I was a lonely councilman at 30 years old. You had to learn your place, you know, what was allowed. If there was a fire going on, I don't think they expected me to walk up to the firefighters and ask what they were doing. If there was a police action, even though they worked for the city, I had no right to cross over that line.
That's not what happened.
Well, let me explain. I'm not saying you did. I'm just trying to say that my perspective over the years is that I was one member of the board. And if the board wasn't in session, then I was just a regular person out there. I never crossed the line. I learned that early on. If I wanted to go with a police officer, I asked permission from the board and the police chief if I could do a ride along certain nights, and they approved it. And that was with everybody's knowledge and insurance and all that covered. But I was very careful that then when I went on to the school board, I attended hundreds of events over 8 years, you know, maybe 150, 200, but they were where I was invited. Whether it was when we did a end of the year gatherings of athletes at different functions, where they were celebrating their accomplishments, whether it was plays or PTO events. We were always in the schools, but always asked to come. It was always an invite. They were happy to see a board member. They were thrilled that a board member would show up at some of these. It wasn't just a football banquet, maybe it was another banquet where the kids didn't get the same recognition as football. So when I went to the township, it was the same thing again. When you're out in the community, some of the board members would tell me, oh, you can go and interfere with what the police are doing or private citizens. I said, no, you can't. You know, you're a board member when you're at a meeting and there's 7 of you or whatever the members around the board, and you have to work within that framework. That's how I felt in all the years that I've been on different municipalities, different boards, that as a combined board, you make decisions for the benefit of the community, for the school district. But as an individual, you have to be invited to go to these things. You don't get involved. I don't stop every accident, you know, that's seen and ask them what they're doing, or a fire or whatever. I respect that they have their job to do and just keep going. I'll find out about it. You know what? You're right. You don't always get the information, Robert. There were times when I would call the township and ask them, hey, what was going on down there? I never heard about it. You know, was somebody arrested? Why were there 6 police cars on that corner? I sometimes didn't find out for days. Maybe the supervisor knew, but he didn't tell everybody. And there is communication that you don't always get all the information. Sometimes it's happening so quickly, but I would never go to a school in all the years I served on the school board unless I was invited. There was a reason to go, unless it was a function that my child was in, then I was a parent. So like every other, and I wouldn't interfere with the direction that they were going. That's just the way I always felt, that you respect your position. And if you need information, you go to the proper staff, which in this case, Ron, and, you know, get the information. And if he wants to delegate that for meeting with Scott or somebody else, that's fine. You know, you get more information, more detailed information. But I just think that's the position of a trustee. It is to understand that when you're not in session like we are right now, then you have no authority out there, and you have no right to be in the school unless you're invited. That's how I feel. I'm not criticizing you. I'm just saying that's the role I've always done for years. Served me well, and I learned that early on. Be careful that people can take, you know, but that's just how I feel. So
I think we could ask Ron to text us instead of nothing. I'm not saying we should, but it helps Robert and he feels like he has more information. Text or Ron, yeah, or something else. I think it's unfortunate that you have limitations in terms of how you operate. But you also, call another board member and say, hey, reach out to us. I don't.
And other board members should be calling me. I'm the new guy. Aren't you supposed to be going, hey, let's help you with the.
Yeah, but I didn't know.
Nobody has done that, but yet you have no problem attacking me.
What I'm trying to say is we don't know when you started school. I mean, you didn't gather information, you didn't see something.
I gather information, I ask questions.
I guess maybe some of the other people on the board. Just because they have kids, just because they, I mean, I'm sure you hear things to your children.
How do you think I found out what was going on about these threats? A parent come up to me and ask me what's going on.
Oh, yeah, that's.
I said, what are you talking about? I just sent my kids into school. This was the day of the threats, where I got no information. I went back, sure, an email was sent, but I don't check my emails first thing in the morning or every hour. So we have to know stuff like this. People come up to us, we are the elected officials.
Yeah.
They're coming up to us asking questions. We have to know something's going on at the minimum.
Okay, so this is how we, kind of like try to, so if I get a question from the community, I don't necessarily have the answer. So I say.
But you know about it.
No, I don't, not necessarily.
Well, not necessarily, something that you should.
Many times, I don't. But,
That's a problem.
well, no, because there's a protocol. We follow, I would say, I don't have that information, but here's who you should be calling. And then I'll get the information from that person. So then you refer them to Mr. Roberts, or if it's a secondary thing, you can refer, or curriculum wise, you could refer to that. I always said, have you spoken to your principal about this? Because principals should be the first point of discussion with parents about, I understand threats. But then if that doesn't work, you say, okay, here's the next number. I'm going to assist you in giving your information, but I'm not necessarily going to go into the school and do my own investigation. At least that's how I behave, how we conducted ourselves since I've been on the board. And this is an attack. This is the first time we've really discussed this. It's very uncomfortable. I have a desire to not help you to be a better board member. I will reach out and call you. I don't know what it is that. I just don't want you to think that we're trying to keep the trust of staff. I'm sure anybody who asks on this board will feel like they get no information about it.
Is it, Mr. Roberts, can we do texting?
Yeah, in fact, the policies that Mr. Coven has, I think, talks about communication.
It's one.
I'll do. I've not heard before that people don't read emails. If that's the case, then I'll follow the board's direction and do it the way the board would like.
Okay, I would just like to say though.
Yeah.
So the problem you're not receiving information is because you're not reading emails.
No.
So now well, but that is what you said, you didn't
No,
check
that's
it
not what I said.
early. But let me finish because it's my turn to talk. If we go to text, Ron could be texting us at any time. And then there's gonna be like 7 texts going back and forth on a group chat.
Which is all.
Yes, and so you want him to text all 7 of us individually in the midst of an emergency.
A one-way notification text is.
I think email is the best through our Chippewa Valley business account. We have Chippewa Valley accounts. I think that's where the email needs to come through. The district does not pay for my cell phone. I don't think I should be receiving official information like that. To be honest with you, that I had 3 children on that campus of the lockdown, one in each school, and I thought I was thoroughly updated as to when it started and when it was over.
Are you done?
So I don't think we need to change our policy because one person can't put their email on their phone, because you're saying you can't put your email on your phone.
That's not a requirement, first of all.
Correct, it's not.
Exactly.
So you
But
need to check
getting
it out.
information to me is.
You can, he is giving us information.
Oh,
And we're given a district computer.
yes.
Check it out.
Well, then what is wrong with me not getting information, but just going to ask a question at a building when I'm not just randomly going into the, let me ask you, okay, first of all, it seems to be that this board doesn't understand that, yes, we make decisions as a board, but we are 7 individuals with no power more than ours. But we make decisions as one. So by saying constantly that we can't do things individually, yes, that's not true. That's not true. Okay. Second of all, when I went to ask the liaison officers, there were other people that had come up to me. And at 4 different times, I was complimented for being the only one that showed enough concern to show up at the building. Okay. So was I intruding? I don't think so. Well, the other day with the lockdowns or the threats.
Complimented by.
Yeah, by staff and students. Okay,
At Dakota? Students knew you at Dakota?
no, not at Dakota, but these people didn't know me. The
What
people that
school?
complimented.
And
didn't
what,
know me.
what school did
Well, I'm not
students
gonna,
from other
I'm not
towns?
gonna get you.
Okay.
Okay, what school?
Yeah.
It was at Chippewa Valley High School in Algonquin. Okay,
But they knew you, yeah.
No.
That's-
no, they didn't.
Students in Algonquin, where you have a student, don't know you.
I don't have a student. I did,
You're-
yeah,
So
but those aren't the ones that compliment.
Okay. You're scared. and I-
People weren't coming, they were coming up to me because they found out I was a board member. Okay, and they complimented. Now, 5 times, you make it sound like I'm just, oh, going into buildings anytime I wanted, all that stuff, right? 5 times I went into a building. 1 time I did. I called up, there was a concern, I wasn't getting any information. I requested this. This went on for about a week or 2. Finally, I did call the principal and I said, look, are you gonna be in, I forgot, an hour, 2 hours, whatever it was? He said yes. I went and I talked to him. Somebody brought up their displeasure about that, and I hadn't done that. Okay, I figured, fine, I'll be courteous, I will give 24 hours, whatever notice, okay? Not that I have to, but because I figured, okay, I will, right? Now, on this day of the threats, there was no time there was information that needed to be done. So I went, and out of the 5 times, 4 of those times happened that day. So there's only been 5 times, so don't make it sound like it was all kind of hundreds of times or whatever, right? 4 of the times, 3 of the times I went to 3 of the buildings that got the threats. And I talked to the liaison officers, right? Now, out of 2 of those buildings, there were other people I talked to, but it wasn't because I requested to talk to them. It was because they came to me or I was brought to them. Okay, and I asked a basic question, I left. There was another incident, I went to one of our administrators, I stopped in, I just said, is he available? I was gonna ask if there's anything I could do to help, I was driving right by the building. He was busy, I left, I never even talked to him. Okay? On top of that, nobody's ever gotten me anything that says I'm not entitled to go to these buildings. Just because somebody says they don't like it. Okay, and I've been told, Mr. Roberts, you've said this numerous times, well, I just don't like you doing this. It doesn't seem right, okay? I say why, and you never give me an answer. You just say, I don't like you do. Well, that doesn't mean it's wrong. That doesn't mean that you guys can attack me for it. Okay? So just because somebody doesn't like it doesn't mean that. Nothing has ever been put in writing. We had a session here that I was attacked a few months ago about something else. It wasn't about this. And I said, put it in writing so I know it's supposedly wrong. And let's do it the legal way. Instead of, again, going behind closed doors just to attack me.
That's what you
Right.
were, that's what you said.
Now,
We were supposed to correct.
Nothing was ever given to me.
We
in writing.
agreed not to give you anything. We agreed.
Nothing
to
was
correct
done.
your behavior. We agreed we didn't want to do that. But we said we'd go back at it if you wouldn't correct your behavior, which you have not. So now we have to put it right. This is more
Now,
time
this
wasted
isn't
by
the
the
same
board.
time. Now, again,
It is the same thing.
these closed sessions. First of all, I'm not even sure they're legal. I'm told that they're not legal the way they're being done. At one point, I was told that we can't just get an attorney to ask questions about things. This happened months ago about something else. I was told by this board that we can't just get an attorney because that's an extra cost. It has to be voted on by the whole board to get an attorney to ask to get these answers. And it was voted. If you look at that, look back at the records, it was voted on and you voted no. Now, all of a sudden, these two closed sessions, which I don't even know are legal, I'm told it's not. All of a sudden, I show up, I'm blindsided because you won't even tell me what these are about. I'm blindsided, and we have an attorney sitting here with statements already prepared, which means he didn't just show up. He was told earlier. Somebody met with him or somebody called him, informed him, and told him what's going on. He shows up, and then this is actually, from what I'm told, an illegal session. Okay, these closed sessions.
They're all the legal sessions, so we already clarified. Our attorney clarified for you already tonight. And last time, that these are not illegal sessions.
Well, let me
We have
tell you
a privilege
something.
to-
Let me tell you something. You guys keep on bringing up the MASP, okay? It's an organization. And the attorney there told me these are not legal the way it's done. So it's another attorney, so we can go to court or whatever, figure out that. I don't know what you want to do. But I'm told one thing, you're told another. I have to stick with one attorney that's telling me it doesn't seem legal. Now, well, real quick,
Okay, go ahead.
as she said, it's my time, right?
Yeah, all right.
It was told about crossing the line. Whose line? What line? I'm still waiting for guidelines. Somebody says I'm doing something wrong. Show me where it's wrong, and I won't do it. But nobody wants to do that. They just want to say either I didn't like it, or you're wrong and you're going to attack me. You're threatening to censure me, or not even censure me. Because you don't even want to go through the whole thing. You just want to cut my card, which has legal ramifications there too. Okay, that is not legal, right? So,
You, and you're.
no, according to the law, if you want to look into the law,
You can't have, your key card is a privilege to this district, it's not a right. Your key card, you're given that as a privilege.
but you can't impede my ability to do my elected position. So that being said, right now that's where it's at.
I have another question. So when you go in a building and then, it causes disruption. I know you don't think it does, and maybe it doesn't, but someone calls central office and says, mentions that, I mean, I don't think Mr. Roberts has ESPN knows when you're in a building.
Yeah, he's got somebody reporting.
I think all the building administrators who are under a lot of stress right now call or whoever they report to and say, came in, I spent 45 minutes with him, and I didn't have, you know, they may be very, very urgent to you, and of course they're going to be. But the real challenge, I guess, is that maybe they aren't comfortable. So they have to report back to our management team who are in charge of the operations of the school district, because they're trying to do the job that they're assigned to do, which I know you don't want to hear this, but that is managing an individual board member is not part of your task. So I'm not
And I'm
saying.
not.
Pardon?
And I'm not managing.
No, I see them managing you showing up at the last minute. They don't, that is not their job to have that disruption. So of course they're gonna bring it forward to their management team. So I guess all I'm gonna say is this, when you hear there was a threat, you have got communication from Mr. Roberts. Did you, I guess maybe in terms of a process, maybe you check your email first, or you can call Mr. Roberts and say, I'm hearing from people there's a threat, and I have gotten communication. information, how come? And then he would say, well, I sent an email, and you say that, but I don't read my email. So you could
Or
just
like in
send-
the past, he said, oh, well, I forgot, or I didn't think it was necessary.
Well, because it's, in all the years that it's being on the school board, unfortunately, you're the first member who's in that situation. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I mean, it is a thing. It is a problem. If you feel.
You're right, it
you're
is.
being withheld- Yeah, if you feel you're being withheld information because you aren't willing to use or cannot use the tools that everybody else is using. So as one person, the rest of us did get the information and felt comfortable with it.
So that's not actually true either. He had brought up the incident about the vandalism at Erie. I'm reading the newspaper, and I found out, now they made it sound a lot worse than it was, but they said something about vandalism at Erie and this and that and everything else. So I sent off a text, and I says, what's going on with this? Wasn't getting an answer, so I was driving by again, I had to go out, and I stopped in, just to see what the vandalism was. That's when I found out it happened probably about a month earlier. Now, when I finally got an answer, Mr. Roberts said, oh, I just forgot, okay? And it took him a while to get back with me for the information.
Was that during school?
So it was actually, I believe it was after school hours, it was during, they had some kind of event on the field or something. 2 kids broke in, and, I mean, the newspaper made it sound like there was, I mean, they had to be. Oh, yeah, everything's during school hours, everything's during the hours, I don't go in otherwise. I'm not gonna go in if nobody's in there.
So when this event was going on in the field, who's in there from the administration, was after hours? How did you get in?
I stopped by a month later to find out. I went in and I asked for the principal wasn't there. I told them, I says, does anybody know about this vandalism? And they said, hold on, they called the custodian came in and just took me over to the room and showed me, and I left.
Well, go ahead.
I just, I guess I just have a thought about the lockdown information. When we're dealing with student safety, a lot of these incidents, we're not a priority, nor should we be. The priority is the buildings, the students, and their safety. So if Mr. Roberts or any of our administrators are dealing with an emergency, I can speak for myself that my preference is we're keeping kids safe. And I'm going to give them the grace that they're doing their job, that they're keeping them safe. And when it is an appropriate time and everyone is safe, then we'll be briefed on the situation. Not on top of a bunch of chaos, especially everything that's gone on in the last week. We should not be a priority. We just shouldn't. Because I am sure that people were at their wits' end because they saw 4 dead children, 7 injured, that happened 2 days prior.
But that's not what this is about. This is about telling me I don't have the right to go into buildings during the day without any problems, not in the middle of the night, not breaking in,
I
nothing else.
understand that, but during a lockdown, the other stuff, it's a learning process, and I will give that to you, but that is a learning curve. But honestly, I do with any of the 6 of you, broke a lockdown like that, I would be upset with any of you.
Well, maybe it wasn't a lockdown, because people were coming and going. Let me ask you something. Last Friday, Chippewa Valley had a drill, a safety drill with the blue boxes. Okay, I wanted to see how those actually work firsthand. So I called I can't remember his name, the assistant principal that handles it. I called the day before. I told him, look, I want to see how this is. I'll probably be there in the morning. I did. I was there in the morning. Mr. Roberts seemed to have a problem with that. I wanted to see, now, how is he going to get me that information when I just want to see how it works firsthand, how these boxes work. He had a problem, so he has a problem with you showing up at the building no matter what it seems like.
You're supposed to go through him to get the best.
Well, now, why do I have to ask permission from Mr. Roberts? Yes.
Okay, let's say that, your next door neighbor wants to do the exact same thing. that okay for him to do that?
No, so you can cut the grass, sure.
Seven buildings, whatever he wants, schools and watches, drills.
Yeah, if he wants to be a board member, sure. He gets elected as a board member.
It's not a board.
Okay, so why would that be acceptable?
It shouldn't be. But when you're acting outside of the authority of your position on the board.
How is that acting outside the authority? See, this is another question you guys need to bring up, but nobody's answering.
This is how, because when you do it without the board's authority, without the board saying, yes, that's fine, you can do those things, you have no more rights than any other dad in the district or any other community member.
Well, I don't think that's true. I've been told totally different, because we just got done saying that I am no longer a parent. I am a parent, but I am no longer a parent. That says I am a board member.
Staff sees you that way.
So it's all different, right? It all depends on what
the law says.
the board's narrative is.
No. It's, I'm not arguing that point. When you, anytime I went to a parent teacher conference, I'm going as a dad of my kids, but that's not how the teachers are seeing me. They know that, yeah, I'm there for my kids, but I'm also a board member. And they're treating me that way, even though I don't want them to, but they can't get past that part of it, okay? That's in their heads, that I'm a board member. But that doesn't mean I have rights above any other community member to go do whatever I want to in the district. Even if I say it's so I can get information so I can do my job. That's not how it works. When you go outside of the board without the permission of the board or the permission of the superintendent, you're acting as a community member. That's all you are, nothing more. And you don't have any more rights than that. You get your rights by 6 other, or I guess in this case, it would be 3 other people that say, yeah, it's a good idea, go ahead and do that. That's how you get your powers.
That's actually not true, because we vote on things.
I know.
So in order to vote, we have to have as much information as we feel comfortable to vote. So it's not the board.
It's not, we're not
I'm
arguing.
saying that 4 people can say that I have to vote yes no matter what I think.
We're not arguing about the information, we're arguing about how you get the information. So what you need to do is talk to him and set something up and you want to do that stuff. If that doesn't work for you, then you work with the rest of the board and you get 3 of us to say, yeah, he should be able to do that, work with him to do that.
I have told this
That's
board a
how
lot
that
of times that I'm not getting the information from Mr. Robbins. Now, he claims that he's talked to me, right?
You're getting.
But when he does, he sits there and tells me that he doesn't like me doing this. And I say, why? And he doesn't give me an answer. He just says, it's not right. I don't think you should, I don't like you doing this.
Okay, but you're acting outside the scope of your authority.
How am I acting outside this? Show me where it says that. Nobody wants to do that.
Can we?
Yeah, I want to go over the policies here that,
Have a policy right now that you could
we
be.
can straighten this out real quick.
There's something that the board can adopt that's more clear to.
Then why do you guys have an attorney, but I don't?
Well, but Robert, you
Well, as a
indicated
board-
you've already consulted this one.
Pardon?
You told us, it sounds like you've already consulted.
But you guys blindsided me. I don't know, maybe should I have my attorney here too? Because I didn't know we were gonna have an attorney here. I didn't know this session was gonna be attacked against me.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, but obviously everybody else did, or at least you people did, because he's got these papers right here he's handing out.
This is the same thing.
About that, he has
We've been looking at this before.
Maybe you could give Mr.
Well, this
Conley
isn't gonna work, then. It's nothing compared to what we have.
I think that would be fair. If you provided the name and phone number of your attorney to Mr. Papa, and they could maybe hash this out for us.
Well, I'm told I can't even talk to this attorney, my attorney, because it would cost money, and as a board, we have to vote on it. That's what I was told, but yet all of a sudden he's sitting here, and I didn't hear anything about it, actually opposite. You kept it from me, so I was blindsided.
I would like to make a motion that your attorney would be available to talk to Mr. Papa.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll do that if you guys finally put something legitimate in writing. This doesn't say anything. If this is the same thing as last time, it doesn't address the problem. So if you guys could put exactly, without dispute, what is going wrong here, what is going wrong, then we can take a test. Otherwise, you're gonna have to come up with better answers.
John, can you walk through this?
Sure.
We can act as a board if we have 4 votes. We can change this policy with 4 votes. We can destroy your key card with 4 votes. We can make you
No, actually, you
trespass.
can't.
We can make you trespass.
No, actually, you can't.
4 votes.
No, actually, you
We're
can't.
not gonna play by your rules.
No, you can't.
We got-
Not legally.
We're not playing Bob's rules, playing Chippewa
We're
schools.
talking Michigan, federal law. We're not talking Frank's laws, okay?
Now, what do the key cards have to do with it? Key cards in the schools are even.
No.
So.
Why? Because it's a power thing. Mr. Frank here seems to think he's just trying to attack me.
If our key cards are an issue, let's just turn off our key cards for all the schools except for the administration.
Yeah, that's fine.
By means, I would make arrangements for the school, they can get in before, find me the door. Can we go through this? Sure. At the board?
Yeah.
Is that all the board members were present last time?
Sure, so at previous board meeting, we discussed the board's current policies related to school visitors. We also discussed operating procedures both of this board and of other school boards, just with respect to how interactions take place between board members, the full board, individual board members, and the superintendent and administration. And there was a discussion about whether or not there potentially would be any updates to what your policies currently have. And part of that to address questions about, what's in writing, what's not in writing regarding how these interactions work. So the first 4 pages of this is just the legal analysis regarding how boards interact or can act under the revised school code, under your board bylaws 0122 and 0143, and how individual board members do not possess the powers that reside within the board. The board speaks through its minutes and not through individual members. Then also some of the language from MASB that lays out those provisions as well. So that's the cover letter. And then when you get into Exhibit A, the top portion is your current board policy 9150 regarding school visitors. And then the last 3 paragraphs that are in bold are proposed amendments the board can look at and are very similar to other school districts we looked at in August. There was a couple that we looked at, including Ann Arbor, Birmingham, and Plymouth Canton, that had language that clearly spelled out that the school visitor policy applied to individual board members, and that those board members who were interested in visiting schools on an unofficial basis make those arrangements with the superintendent in compliance with this policy and Administrative Guideline 9150, which Administrative Guideline 9150 is attached as Exhibit B. That currently does not exist in the district either. But it's something that the board can look at, and again, those other districts have in place. So if you look at Exhibit B, it gets into some more detail about board member school visits, and that board members interested in visiting schools or classrooms on an unofficial basis make those arrangements with the superintendent. Visits considered unofficial if it's not expressly designated as official by either the board or the board president. And then provides that the superintendent will schedule a visit in a time and manner designated or designed, to minimize disruptions to students, staff, and the educational program. Generally, they'd be scheduled outside of the traditional typical school hours, not during drop off or pickup, and not during regularly scheduled classes or standardized testing. And then, like all other school visitors, board members should be required to check in at the school's main office upon arrival and not allowed to roam the building or premises unattended. And that those visits may not intrude on the educational process or classroom learning environment and not occur on an excessive basis. And the superintendent or his designee can attend those visits with the board member at whatever district site the board member has requested to attend, and that board members aren't interacting with staff without prior authorization of the superintendent. And then if the board member attempts to visit the school building without making prior arrangements with the superintendent, that school personnel is directed to point the board member to board policy 9150 and administrative guideline 9150, and that there be a request that the board member make the appropriate arrangements through the superintendent. And if that doesn't happen, then to contact the superintendent or the assistant superintendent of human resources themselves to talk to the board member, and potentially contact law enforcement if the board member does not adhere to the procedures. And then exhibit C is kind of some more detailed operating procedures. We talked about a couple of school districts have just kind of more of the intent of what a school board actually does. And we looked at a couple of districts of similar size that had operating procedures that kind of were almost in front of, or not, were in front of the bylaws of the board. And we looked at Plymouth, Canton, and Arbor, Livonia, they're all similarly sized school districts to Chippewa Valley. So a couple of intent policies, and then also having that school board member visitor policy in place. And so the first under Exhibit C, page 1 is just looking at the role of board members. And just an intent statement, the board acts as a whole and only at properly convened board meetings. An independent member of the board lacks independent authority and may not act for or on behalf of the board unless specifically delegated authority by the board in advance. Individual board members must not attempt to act as administrators or direct district employees in regard to their performance of their duties. And then page 2 goes into board member duties in general, and there are 15 of those listed on pages 2 and 3. And these again, we walked through some of these and looking at some of those other districts. So first is delegating executive responsibilities to the superintendent and or administrative staff, the function of administrating the schools in accordance with statutory law. Number 2 is not seeking to participate in the day-to-day operations of the district. Number 3 is not interfering with the superintendent's authority to decide on matter of administrative details not specifically covered in the law or board policy. And your board policy 1230K specifically says that the superintendent has all of the responsibilities to carry on the day-to-day functions that are not specifically prohibited within your board policies. So it gives the superintendent broad authority to take on your day-to-day operations. 4 is you act on legislative matters only after seeking and receiving pertinent information and receiving the superintendent's recommendations in full discussion by the board. 5, require that you meet as a board and be conducted on the basis of a planned agenda prepared by the superintendent in accordance with board policies. 6 is that you direct the superintendent to keep the board continuously and adequately informed concerning school issues, current and anticipated, so that you can operate in conformity with your required statutory provisions and policies. 7 is respecting the superintendent's authority to advise the board and implement policies and administer the daily operations of the district. 8 is supporting and protecting district personnel in the proper performance of their duties. 9, holding the superintendent accountable for acceptable standards and results in the operation of the district. That's what you do with your annual evaluations required by law as well. 10, submitting a request to the superintendent if you desire to visit a school building, except when you're attending scheduled building activities or events. 11, representing the community on a single constituency. 12, avoiding public or private action that compromises the board, the district or administration, and respecting confidentiality of privileged information. 13, communicating with your board peers and administrative staff in a way that promotes and ensures good practice, adherence to the Meetings Act and the authority of the superintendent. Regular reviewing the board bylaws, policies, and operating procedures, and your administrative guidelines and board member duties. And 15, referring community inquiries, requests, and criticism directly to the appropriate administrative officer in accordance with board policies. Then page 4 is a reiteration of your board bylaw regarding board member ethics, which is currently 0144.2. This is already in your bylaws. The previous page was not. But in general, again, your ethics are you're attending regular meetings. You're endeavoring to make policy decisions after full discussion. You're rendering all decisions based on available facts and independent judgment. Encouraging free expression of opinion by all board members. Working with other board members to establish effective board policies and delegate authority for administration to the superintendent. Communicating to other board members and the superintendent expressions of public reaction to board policies and programs. Informing yourselves about current educational issues by individual study and through participation in programs providing needed information. Supporting the employment of those persons best qualified to serve as school staff. Avoiding being placed in a position of conflict of interest and refusing to use your position for personal partisan gain. taking no private action that will compromise the board, administration, and the superintendent, and respecting confidentiality of information as privileged. And then remembering that your first and greatest concern is for the educational welfare of students attending the district. Page 5 is not something that's currently laid out in your bylaws. This is communication and conduct among board members and between the superintendent as well. So A is maintaining professional and courteous behavior throughout interactions and meetings, modeling behaviors consistent with district staff and student expectations. Board members not deliberating issues outside of school board meetings. And then supporting the superintendent of schools and exercising his or her best judgment and discretion to determine what board members need to know based on specific information or specific situations. Types of communication between board members and the superintendent of schools. As obviously any of this can be updated, but what I put together was it's not urgent. Putting it in your board packet if it's important but not a crisis, an email or text to board member, to each board member, and then crisis or emergency situation, a phone call or a text. And that obviously can be laid out in emails or how the board want that information to come through. And then the last page, page 6, is a reiteration of the administrative guideline 9150 on board member school visits. Administrative guidelines, if you recall, are implemented by the superintendent, so it's not something you as a board vote on. So by putting this back into your operating procedures, it demonstrates you're voting on it and agreeing to adhere to the substantive provisions that are with it. So currently you have board policy 9150. Administrative guideline 9150 is not in place. The superintendent has the authority to implement that so at any time. And then these operating procedures, some of the board member ethics provisions are in your bylaws, but not all of the language is specifically there. The ability not to do anything, you can just update your current board policy at this point. Take all this under advisement, looking at your organizational meeting and say you want these operating procedures. Or you can say you want to review them more and just have a brief statement that so such time as you look at it in more detail, all school visits must be coordinated through the superintendent's office. Like I said earlier. So obviously I'll take questions.
I have a question. Would it be permissible to, as Mr. Bernard had suggested, to revoke access and then in the interim, so for now until January 10th, revoke access and then on January 10th, revisit the issue so that Mr. Wojtovich can come with the counsel that he has indicated that he's consulted with?
So it's possible. A couple of things, I guess.
Why do you keep on saying I consulted with counsel?
Because you told us during the course of this
Yeah,
conversation.
I've said that I've had attorneys tell me things. I never said I consulted with counsel. But the second time you said that, so I figured I'd address it.
Well, I guess I assumed when you said that you've spoken with attorneys.
Yeah.
That would be consulting with counsel.
So
Because I don't know about random attorneys who would come up to you and start offering you legal advice
so you have
about this.
confirmed that you guys against me have
This is the
retained
first,
counsel, right?
Mr. Wojtovich, I was not here August 9th. I was on vacation with my family. This is the first that I'm having a conversation with Mr. Kava about this.
Okay, but what you're saying is that this board against me has retained counsel against me.
No, so I would, no. So first of all,
That's pretty much what you're confirming, I guess, since I have to get mine, you have yours, right? And you're talking to them just like I've asked questions to
So
some.
I was trying to be fair to you because you have indicated that attorneys have provided you advice.
And
So-
attorneys have provided you advice.
Correct.
Yes.
And so if you would like counsel here, or you would like your counsel who has provided you advice, to talk to Mr. Kava, I think that would be fair. But you seem to be combative about it.
Well, yeah,
So
because
either
that's an extra
consult with
cost.
an attorney.
That's an extra
And then-
cost. I don't think I should have to endure just because you seem to have an attorney against me, which is what you've done here, because I didn't even know you were gonna be here. Obviously, let me ask you this,
Well,
first of all,
maybe these
this
people would do
packet,
it
I don't
for
believe
free,
this
but they're
packet,
just coming and offering you advice.
I don't believe this packet is the same as last time, but I have to request that this full packet be made public and without FOIA made public, okay? Along with the last packet, if it is different.
So first of all, the packet is different because.
I thought so.
Because I brought examples last time, and this packet is now updating your current policies based on previous conversations.
But Mr. Bednar said it was the same.
It's the same
package.
stuff that was, the assumption defined in our.
But how can it be the same stuff?
See, now this is where, we're not having, you're not a victim here, okay, you're not a victim, you're.
Oh,
the one-
yeah, actually, I am. You guys are attacking me. I'm not.
You're the one that caused all this, number one, number two.
No,
we're not
actually, you
having-
guys are the one that.
We're not having a due process trial. We're
I
not
didn't
doing a
cause
trial
that.
here. We're not doing a trial here, the board's deciding how to correct your behavior.
No.
That's what we're doing, we're not putting you on trial here.
You're attacking me because you don't like me doing what I was elected to do.
Yeah.
You're telling me that I don't have a right to go in to make sure that our schools are safe. You're
You have a way to
telling
do
me
that. You
that
have a
I
way.
don't have a right to talk to any of our administrators without permission from our employees.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
you're
process
telling
we
me,
follow.
okay, well, then prove it. I mean, all I asked all along is show me something in writing. Okay, now, at the same time, you're telling me that I don't have a right to go into our schools to see how these safety procedures are working firsthand. You're telling me I don't have a right to do any of that? I don't have a right to oversee what I've been elected to do, to look at all this stuff that I have to vote on?
We got over 90 years of school board membership.
Well, good for
90
you, I'm proud of you.
And we've never had to have any single problem like you're having. You've been on this board less than a year, less
That's
than
not my
11
problem.
months. How is it that you're running this many problems that
Follow the
for
law,
90 years here, we've never had to have problems with?
follow the
Do
law,
you think that you're kind of marching to your own drum here?
Follow
We need
the
to
law.
correct that. That's what we're gonna do.
follow the law.
Follow the rules, follow the policies.
Exactly, that's what you're not doing.
Ones you don't want.
You're telling me something exists that doesn't.
The only way we're gonna get your attention is by keeping you out of our schools.
Instead of talking, instead of trying to prove your point, what you chose to do is always just attack.
You're gonna follow the rules.
Being attacked.
Follow the rules, and all the rest of the board members around you follow. That's all we're
No, no.
asking you to do.
As was
No,
said,
you can't do that.
that's what you guys have been doing, it doesn't mean the rules.
We're not doing our jobs right, Bob.
What you guys have been doing all
These
these
schools-
doesn't mean it's right.
How could they, hold on, how could these schools survive all these years without you on board? How come?
I don't know, by golly gee.
How does it happen, Bob?
I don't know.
All
See,
these
you're
things
glad
you're
I'm here.
discovering,
You're
we're
really
finally-
glad I'm here
thank
now.
God You're here, you're gonna save the day for us all.
Thank you, finally you see.
We already have this policy in place for 9150, not the additional. But it already says in here that the superintendent of the principal has the authority to prohibit the entry of any person to a school or to expel any person who is detrimental to the good order of the school. So that says, and so this already exists. She asked for their policy.
And I just got it now, all these
No,
months,
it exists.
nobody chose to do it to me, instead of just come here at the last minute, try and claim to see, we did what we're supposed to, after you already attacked me. Let me, I will look at this,
These are available in Tim's office, they're also available on.
and I will look at this and see, but in the past, we have had policy that I was told addressed the situation that didn't. In fact, it addressed the total opposite, I was very hostily attacked on something that I read the same sentence. And what I read, it was saying the opposite of what it was being claimed, and the first.
In your opinion, in your mind, because everybody else here thought that was correct, and you're just saying, oh, it's not the way you see it, so therefore it's not correct. Yeah, well, I mean, we're not getting anywhere.
Frank, can I suggest something?
Yeah, suggestion.
You know, let's put this on the next agenda. I think there's a lot of good things here we can adopt.
Right.
At this point, school's gonna be recessed to January 4th pretty soon. So I don't care about the keys or any of that good stuff. Just let it go. Let's just put it on the next agenda, give everybody time to read it over.
That's what I
It
asked.
spells clearly what board policy is. And nobody's saying that you can't get answers, and no one says you can't be at a school just to go through the superintendent or the board president. And I think that's clear. We should adopt it, if not exactly as written, with some modifications we want to do at the next meeting. And that should end all the questions.
Just to be clear, when we met before, I know there was only four of us, I think this is Joe, George, I, and Bob, and we went through a lot of this, and we didn't, or Denise too, we didn't want to impose anything on a formal policy. Notes. We just wanted to talk about, say what he's doing, we don't agree with, it's not a problem. We did talk, we talked to you. Okay,
You started yelling yourself.
You're
You started yelling.
I just wanted to stop, that's all we want. So we said, Bob, let's just try to correct this behavior. We brought to your attention what was disturbing the board. And you said, okay, I'll work on it. We said, if you don't, then we're gonna have to bring the stuff forward. So this is exactly what happened. You kept doing what you were doing before.
No,
And
it's
now we're,
not the same
no,
thing.
just stop.
Frank,
Just
that's a
stop
lie.
interrupting me.
This isn't
I ain't
the
not
same
interrupting
thing.
you.
No, you just lied.
I didn't
I
lie.
can't let you get away with
It's
that.
the same stuff.
This is not
We
the
find
same
what we
stuff.
looked at before, so
Mr.
this is the
Collins
same
just
stuff.
said, it was addressing different
It's
things.
fine. He took up 2 pages and made it into 1.
It's not even the same thing we discussed last time.
So let's move forward.
It was a different complaint.
As Ben said, we're gonna do it right, and we're gonna do it right. We're gonna do it this, so adopt this. You'll have your chance to show us that you kind of understand what we're saying now, and if not, then we'll have the policy to move forward from there. And that's what we're gonna do.
Better exactly like you recommend.
Yes.
I just have one, so for any parent volunteer or anything, they all, like, they have to fill out a background check.
Yeah.
And even when I was a board member, volunteer at Cheyenne, I still had to fill out a background check.
Mhm.
So if we're gonna have access to buildings, is that something that we should have? We
As
should
an
have background
official,
check?
you don't have
Background check.
You don't have to have access to,
The elected official has to.
so you're very concerned about safety, but you're not willing to submit a background check to go to school,
Oh, I've submitted background checks.
to the schools.
Yes, yes.
But why? I know that you were not.
As an elected official, though, I don't know if it's
Well, I think.
So anytime you're around, so visitors, for visitor policy, you don't need to have a background check for visitor policy. You may have one, even if board members or volunteers, they require to have background checks if you're volunteering with students. The volunteers is different than visitors too.
Yeah.
And if you're a new board member walking in here, we don't know your background, so I mean, it could be put in the policy too, that we, new board members submit to background checks prior to getting building passes.
Is that legal?
Just to be a board member yourself, you don't have to submit to a background check. I'll double check on the whole issue of getting an actual pass to the building.
No, what I mean is that if the board in its policy determines that they want to say that all board members will submit for a background check. Is that legal? I mean, Robert said it's not.
Well, just, so,
I said, I'm not sure.
yeah, so
Oh,
it's the issue is that when you're talking about actually going into school buildings, so I'll have to double check that piece of the statute on it.
okay.
So I just want to clear moving forward here. So if we want to adopt these policies, so the idea is we're gonna read through these policies. We've read some already tonight and before. And we're gonna come back on the 10th and we're gonna discuss these policies. And adopt them. Do we need to do like 2 readings to adopt?
Well, we've already had one reading this evening.
Okay.
We went through it.
So we can adopt these the next board meeting.
Yeah, and your policies always discuss that you can obviously, depending on the situation, decide to do it after only 1 reading or an emergency situation, suspend policies. But you're gonna have a second reading anyway on it next week.
So that's what we'll do. And then how about if the board, the board's going to vote how they vote, but just suppose if the board votes that Wojtovich is correct and we're wrong, that's what it'll say. If the board votes that Mr. Wojtovich is wrong, what is there sanctions included in there that spell out what we can do as a board to prohibit, say, in this case, this alleged behavior?
Okay, well, wait a second, before you go on with that, then I have to say, you can't get away with one or the other. If you're gonna try and punish me because I was wrong, instead of just saying, okay, I admit I was wrong, then you need to be punished if you were wrong. So let's go with that. So what sanctions do we put against the rest of the board?
I think he needs to.
Now.
Yeah, it's not about moving back. So that's not what he said, right? That's not what he said.
Right?
I don't wanna put any words.
Yeah,
in his
no,
mouth, so that's not what he said.
No,
But it's in there.
I'm just funny. Listen, we're gonna go in here, we're gonna adopt these policies, and we wanna make sure moving forward, and we're gonna make sure that there's something in here that if we have a board member that doesn't wanna follow this, we have some way of correcting
It's
it.
in there, Frank, it's in there. It says that they can be, the local authorities can be call.
Okay,
It's in there.
I just wanna have this,
They were first to
I wanna have
add
this
one.
sealed up, so I'm already done with this.
It's all in there.
I don't wanna be messing with this, I don't want to take calls from Mr. Roberts, tell me about your.
If you put in procedure or policy, then fine.
Good, excellent.
But I'm not gonna agree to anything. If you're gonna try and punish me because I was wrong,
No.
but yet you don't wanna punish yourself when you're wrong, that's just ridiculous.
I don't wanna do nothing
You realize
wrong.
how immature that would sound.
Okay, all I'm saying is, let me say it again, if you're not listening again.
No, actually, I'm listening perfectly. You're
Moving forward from this point on, if you were to violate these policies, if they were put in place on the tenth, there would be some sort of sanction involved in those things you did since we put it in place. So after the tenth, we adopt these, and you decide to drop into a building, we have a repercussion. Yes, we would have to adopt the policy.
So why are you assuming that if it's in policy, I'm still breaking it?
I don't know.
That's very insulting.
Our hopes are that you will not break it. That's why we're here tonight.
Once those are put into place, if you guys decide to break policy or break
We're
something,
sanctioned also.
then we should be able to, okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But those for,
We're just gonna know that there's gonna be no leniency here.
it's not saying Mr. Boytovic saying.
You don't think anybody should be lenient, I think you think that, break a rule, you get punished on either side. Just
Yeah, we have procedures we follow.
Just to be clear, okay,
We'll follow procedures.
okay,
So that's all we're trying to get to.
so it's on record.
Yes.
And again, these need to be made public, this one and the last one, if it is different, public without FOIA. So everybody can see what we're talking about here.
I'm not willing to waive attorney-client privilege.
I don't know what that's supposed to mean, though. I don't want to read anything like that. What does that mean, Mr. Allen?
Well, so
Well,
you're,
then this doesn't mean anything if we can't FOIA, or
So-
can't make it public.
But it
So-
will be public, once you
It's
get it.
public.
It'll be on our website.
Yeah, it'll be.
It's
policy
not,
policy.
it's not public now, right, it'll be public after the vote, that it goes in on the
I'll
website.
do the bylaws.
Just here,
Yeah.
this whole thing.
No,
Not by that.
it's not.
You can't have something that's not made public, we're a school board.
It will be public. It'll be on our website.
This whole package,
Yeah, but
without FOIA,
once we adopt this, it'll go on our website.
the whole package.
Yeah, well,
Page
whatever,
one, page after means.
No, the exhibits will.
See, I don't think you're listening.
whatever's put in the policy on this package, will be on our bylaws.
Well, I'll talk about the whole package. The whole thing was given to me, and I think the whole thing, including the last one, because it was different, and we really used it as a point here. People should be able to see what we're talking about, and I think it should be made public without FOIA, so people don't have to FOIA it.
How do you want
Even if someone FOIA'd it, that wouldn't matter, it's protected by attorney.
And that's what I'm saying, we need to make it public.
so the only way the board would have to vote to say that it's no, you want to waive privilege, because the privilege resides with the full board. And so both the last package and this package are subject to attorney-client privilege.
Just so we're clear though, this is just a condition that Mr. Boytovich wants. We still can proceed regardless of that. If we vote for or against, we can still proceed, put this in the policy. We don't have to put the public or make his demands, eat his demands.
I'd have to make a motion, second. Okay, we're all set. So are we gonna take a vote on this then? I guess I have to make a motion?
No,
No.
he wants to make a motion with this package.
This package and the last one.
Okay, first, let's do it correct, Bob, we got to amend first, agenda.
Okay.
To make that motion, right? We have to amend it first, so,
So,
okay, we're good? We're gonna do that now.
amended agenda, I put forth amended agenda
Motion
to
to,
discuss the posting of the package here.
first, we're gonna go motion to amend.
On the agenda, and I'll second your motion to amend the agenda.
Okay.
To amend, to. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 6-1, that motion passes to amend agenda. Okay, Mr. Markovich, could you tell us what you'd like us to vote on? See.
I put forth to make this package and the last one, since we're talking about both of those, the full package, make it public without FOIA, so that everybody can see what we're talking about, and so that we don't withhold information from the public.
Motion? Second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Markovich that this package in its entirety made public.
I have a friendly amendment,
Questions, comments?
only so that we have the verbiage correct. It's that we are waiving attorney-client privilege on this, which we would not be subject to FOIA regardless. So we would like it subject to FOIA because you're asking us to waive our attorney-client privilege.
I would like it made public even without FOIA.
Correct, so you want us to waive our attorney-client privilege.
Yes, so we don't withhold information from the public. Yes.
So, yeah, just so we're clear, it's just, the board understands that if we were to pass this motion by Mr. Vaitovich, we would waive our attorney-client privilege on this package. All right, so we have, motion made by Mr. Vaitovich, seconded by Ms. Aquino. Let's do a roll call vote on this one, Ms. Patton, please.
Mr. Wojtovich,
Yes.
Ms. Aquino,
No.
Mr. Bednar,
No.
Ms. Demink,
No.
Mr. Pearl,
No,
myself, no, Mr. Silva.
Motion fails.
6, motion fails.
We will withhold the information.
Well. All right, so with that, we're gonna read through this, and will this be, in its entirety, what we adopt for policy?
So it can be, yes, with the exception of obviously the yeah, but so it would be, you'd have an amendment to board policy 9150. There's an administrative guideline in there, 9150, which the board does not have to vote on. And then there's the operating procedures, which the board would have to vote on. So the items that have actually come before a vote, I can work with Mr. Roberts to make sure that those are to the full board well in advance of what exactly, you'd have two items, you'd have an amendment to board policy 9150 and approval of the operating procedures.
We had this spelled out, kind of like we just said on an email, or maybe show us the policies that way too, so we understand very clearly as we walk in on top of what we're voting on.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll make sure that's part of the agenda. You like that open or closed? Open, I take it.
oh,
I mean, as far as discussion, so we could go to attorney time. Well, Mr. Wojtovich wants it open. Go. All right, and that's all we have for this evening. Thank you very much. Motion to adjourn.
Support.
By Ms. Hyden, supported by Ms. Aquino. Meeting adjourned at 9:39. Yes, vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned at 9:30.